Chapter 897. Chu Tian looked over to where Nan Gong-yun was pointing. The place where the Star Elemental King had been killed had a glowing liquid substance. This thing looked like mercury, and it was hard to find in this environment if one didn't look carefully, so it's star marrow. This is a very rare recovery sacred medicine. It's just a sacred medicine? Nan Gong-yun thought she had found some treasure. Miracle Commerce had plenty of sacred medicines in their warehouse, and there were even several immortal medicines. She was a bit disappointed. Damn, this old lady thought it was some treasure. Your way of thinking is wrong. Isn't a sacred medicine a medicine? Chu Tian filled a small bottle with the star marrow. Not to mention sacred medicines are divided into levels. Star marrow is a rare level 4 sacred medicine, and because it is very gentle, although it is a level 4 sacred medicine, low-level cultivators can still take it. This kind of treasure is rare, so it will be very useful when we bring it back. The star marrow could be considered an unexpected harvest. Chu Tian returned to Miracle City to properly reward the locals who helped him. He gave them a small reward before sending them away. These locals didn't care about the reward. Being able to experience the new trial field for free was enough to satisfy them. Now they just wanted the new trial field to open as soon as possible. At this moment, the City Lord's office. The young Miss and Vivian, the two Vice City Lords, were currently busy with official business. The young Miss was very familiar with this, handling heavy tasks as if they were light. She calmly raised her pen like the wind, instantly taking care of a large amount of matters. Vivian was sitting on the side with a pen in her mouth, constantly scratching her head. Looking at the dense pile of documents, her head was spinning and she couldn't find her direction. Vivian was a bit similar to Meng Ying, but also a bit similar to Nan Gong-yun. Her personality was somewhere in between. Ying was clever, sensible and serious, but also lively and mischievous. Perhaps it was because of these similarities that these three girls had already become sisters. Nan Gong-yun was still the big sister, Meng Ying was still the second sister, and Vivian, who was originally the oldest, had become the youngest sister. If Vivian's age was changed to a human 14-year-old, this wasn't wrong. In short, these three girls were together all day and their relationship could be said to be very good. But whether it was Ying or Nan Gong-yun, Vivian wasn't cut out to be a city lord. Royal father is hateful. He actually arranged for me to be Miracle City's Vice City Lord. When Vivian heard that Nan Gong-yun and Ying had gone out to play with Chu Tian, her heart itched and she didn't have the mood to do anything. Elder sister, Vivian, we're back. Meng Ying happily charged in. You won't be able to guess what good thing we brought back. It will definitely give you a big fright. When Vivian heard Ying's voice, she became spirited and stood up. What good thing? Quickly let me see it. Meng Qingwu slightly knit her brows. This is the City Lord's office. How can you act so rashly? She didn't even finish before Meng Ying poured out all the star crystals they had obtained. With a crash, it formed a small mountain of star crystals. Vivian and Meng Qingwu's eyes went wide. These star crystals were very pure and contained very high energy. It was definitely a rare top-quality item. They all cultivated the Starlight Immortal Body. Of course they knew how precious this thing was. This? Meng Qingwu was very surprised. How did you get this many star crystals? You still don't know. Nan Gong-yun was in high spirits. She gestured with her hands and said, Boss brought us on an adventure. It turns out that there is a huge underground world under the city. We can go deeper into it through the Devil's Maw. There are ugly monsters everywhere, for example those evil eyes that can shoot light beams. It's said that evil eyes are one of the lowest level monsters. Our lives won't be boring in the future, so quickly use the star crystals to increase our strength and go on an adventure. I really want to see just how many strange monsters there are inside. Vivian's eyes lit up. Was this true? She was a very curious person. She wouldn't be able to sit still as the city lord. She liked to go on adventures, and if Miracle City had this kind of place, her life wouldn't be boring in the future. Young miss, don't be busy. Be a good boy and go cultivate. Chu Tian did not follow Meng Qingwu. 8 outstanding skeletons, 3 scabbard and woodcutter in the days that Chu Tian left the small town, Everyone's cultivation quickly increased. The forest of chaos couldn't compare to the southern summer country. There were too many resources here. There were various elixirs and sacred herbs everywhere, and the price was very low. Before Chu Tian left, he gave everyone a customized cultivation plan. With this many resources and the help of the flower fairies, their cultivation increased by quite a bit. Chen Bingyu and Dong Fonghaoren were already in the peak first true spirit layer. Meng Qinggu, Meng Yingying, Nangong Yun, and the others were all in the peak ninth awakened soul layer. This batch of star crystals came at the right time. Everyone used this chance to break through their bottlenecks and their strength would explode. Miracle Commerce's high-level members were all in the true spirit realm, so it would be easier for them to stabilize their current positions. Of course, Meng Qinggu was filled with joy and excitement. Who didn't want their strength to become a bit stronger? There have been too many things happening in the city recently. Meng Qinggu thought of something and spoke of a very important matter. Prophet Yoda's injuries are very serious. The shamans have already submitted to Miracle Commerce. The gnomes are convinced by us, and the surrounding locals are harmonious. Only the druids are a variable, and I'm worried that something will happen to the prophet. This power will fall into chaos because of this. They are not a small power. The green religion, the undead religion, the shaman religion, and the druid religion were the main powers in this area. Compared to the other three, although the druids were more low-key and stood aloof, they still had quite a bit of influence. The druids' abilities are very interesting. If they can become a part of Miracle City, it will be very beneficial. Meng Qinggu knit her brows. I want to know how to help them. You must have a way, right? Young Miss can be assured. Chu Tian said to Vivian beside him, I'll bring Vivian over. This small problem will be easily solved. That's right. Vivian didn't want to sit in the office for a long time. Elder sister can be assured of going into closed-door cultivation. There's still us. Chu Tian cut in. The young miss is too weak. I am the respected Miracle City's Vice City Lord. How could my trivial awakened soul realm cultivation be enough? This is too outrageous. Meng Qinggu snappily said, Then we've really lost face for Sir City Lord. It's fine, it's fine. Chu Tian said with a giggle. This city lord has always been very lenient with beauties. If Meng Qingwu's strength reached the true spirit realm, her heavenly book source spirit would be even stronger and her work efficiency and learning efficiency would increase by a large amount. The so-called sharpening the knife wouldn't delay the work of cutting wood, so no matter how busy she was, she had to first increase her strength. All right then, this is the draft plan completed in the last few days. Meng Qingwu placed a thick notebook on the table. We've analyzed some of Miracle City's flaws and areas that need to be improved. Other than that, we've made a preliminary plan for the city. What do you think? I'm very assured with the young miss handling it. Chu Tian was too lazy to even look at it and threw it to the side, then give it out and immediately implement it. Meng Qingwu was speechless. How long was this fellow going to be so carefree? Miracle City was Miracle Commerce's future headquarters, but this fellow had an indifferent attitude. She had truly been defeated by him. Although she was very dissatisfied with Chu Tian's sloppy appearance, Meng Qingwu could feel his trust in her, which made her feel a bit satisfied in her heart. Meng Qingwu brought Yingying, Nangong, and the others into closed-door cultivation. Chu Tian needed to completely solve the druid problem, so he ran to the alchemy room to refine several star marrow pills. Chu Tian found it hard to process level 4 materials with his current strength because a true spirit cultivator couldn't use a level 4 alchemy array and below level 4 alchemy arrays couldn't refine level 4 materials. But the star marrow was very gentle, so it could be used without any refining. Chu Tian could completely merge the star marrow with level 3 materials. Like this, he could make several star marrow pills and their effects would not lose to a level 4 recovery sacred pill. Chu Tian took one first. The star marrow pill's effects spread throughout his body and immediately began to show its effects. This quickly healed the side effects of the backlash from the fight with the Lich. The hidden injuries that would have taken a few days to heal were instantly healed. The star marrow pill's effects were not just simple recovery. This pill could deeply improve the body. No matter how old the hidden injuries were, It would have a strong effect and it could greatly increase the physique. This was a good thing that money couldn't buy. Vivian, let's go. We'll go to the Druid Temple. Alright. Vivian used her spatial energy and instantly brought Chu Tian to the Druid Temple. This spatial energy was hard to defend against, and the two of them appeared in front of the Druid Temple. Who is it? The Druids quickly came over. Everyone, don't misunderstand. I am Mayor Chu Tian. Chu Tian raised a pill high up. This mayor knows that Prophet Yoda's injuries have not been healed, so I took the risk to enter the underground world and killed 18 fierce beasts. I collected 8 immortal herbs and refined them into an immortal pill with an ancient recipe. This pill will definitely cure Prophet Yoda's illness, so please take me to see Prophet Yoda. The Druids looked at each other in blank dismay. Was there really such a magical pill? However, Druids still believed in Chu Tian's ability. This was because when Chu Tian fought the Lich Dragon, many Druids saw it with their own eyes. After the battle ended, Prophet Yoda was brought back with heavy injuries and was in a near-death state. It was Chu Tian who found a way to temporarily prolong his life. Chu Tian wrote several recipes to cure Yoda's illness. Who would have thought that Yoda already had hidden injuries, and after the battle with the Lich Dragon, his injuries became even more serious. Now that he had completely erupted, he was on his last breath and he might not be able to hold on. The Druids were very worried because the Prophet was not only the leader of the Druids, he was also their highest spiritual leader. If anything happened to Yoda, the entire Druids would suffer a heavy blow. Chu Tian appeared again at this time, claiming to have a top-quality immortal herb. This undoubtedly gave the Druids a glimmer of hope. So it's Sir Mayor, we've been rude. Sir Mayor, please come in. Chapter 898. The basin where they fought the Lich Dragon had already been sealed by the gnomes. Although the earth-shattering battle had passed for a while, the entire area was still covered in a thick death aura. Several dozen miles of vegetation had withered and there were still undead wandering around the area. Whether it was Miracle City or the locals of other places, they were not interested in this place at all. The gnome Great Elder Clark had led people in to dig, finally finding a space filled with powerful death energy under the basin. This should be an ancient death ruin. The Lich had built the altar and array on top of the ruins, absorbing the death energy that had been brewing for tens of thousands of years, finally condensing it into a terrifying power that could destroy the entire city. If Chu Tian hadn't stopped him in time, Miracle City would have already turned into a death zone. Chu Tian brought Ying, the little fox, the 18 divine servants, and the 10 Fox clan priests into the ruins. Everyone be careful. Chu Tian turned around and made a gesture. He looked into the deep underground space and said, "This place is filled with all kinds of dangerous undead." The Fox clan priests were all confused. Why did Chu Tian come here for no reason? Moreover, he didn't lack experts by his side, so why did he choose the demonic god religion's priests? The demonic god religion's priests were not strong in battle, so the Fox clan's main value to Miracle City was beast taming and business. Oh my god, why does this place look so gloomy? Meng Yingying followed Chu Tian into the underground world. She felt her body turn cold like there was ice water pouring into her pores. There are rotten bones all over the ground, it's just like a large tomb. What did you come here for? Is there a hidden treasure here? Chu Tian gave a laugh. Take a guess. Meng Yingying gave a snort. Clark had already brought people to explore the death ruins, but because it was very dangerous and the negative energy was too strong, the exploration team had to retreat after entering a bit, so they didn't have much information to gather. Chu Tian was walking in front with his sword drawn. The little fox was lying on his shoulder, taking in large mouthfuls of energy. It sucked away the strong death energy around them, relieving the pressure on them. The entire underground world was like a huge ancient tomb. The skeletons of the ancient creatures, under some kind of powerful force, actually formed spiraling bone pillars. It was these pillars that firmly supported the space. Chu Tian could feel a strong energy fluctuation. The entire ruin was not simply supported by a physical structure. It had formed some kind of profound and powerful energy field that enveloped the entire tomb. That was why it had not been damaged even after tens of millions of years. Even though the battle in the basin was extremely fierce, this place did not collapse in the slightest. Hey, tell me when the time comes, what is in this broken place? Meng Yingying didn't even finish before her eyes suddenly popped out and her snow-white teeth chattered, "Ghost, ghost." So many ghosts are coming out. The several dozen people had just arrived at a relatively open and flat area. There were spiraling bone pillars all around them, just like naturally formed stalactites rising from the ground. Only these bone pillars had large amounts of terrifying skulls embedded in them. At this moment, the skulls released a smoke-like energy. This energy quickly gathered in the air and quickly turned into a terrifying ghost source spirit. There were many of them, and in the blink of an eye, there were several hundred of them. The dozen people were completely surrounded. The various ancient being skeletons piled up all around them began to tremble. What? A bone arm reached out. Meng Yingying's slender leg was grabbed and she was already frightened, so she quickly kicked out with a scream. Meng Yingying's battle strength was not that high, but she was still a true spirit cultivator. True spirit cultivator's spirit energy erupted and the bones were instantly shattered. Meng Yingying was still in shock as she found that the place where the bones touched began to smoke. It was a good thing she had the Starlight Immortal body to protect her, otherwise with this kind of strong death energy entering her body, her leg would have been mostly crippled. The entire world was filled with the sea of bones. Countless strange-looking skeletons slowly crawled out. There were so many of them that it was hard to imagine. There were quite a few complete ancient beast skeletons and their bodies released an aura that was not inferior to a level 3 demon beast. Meng Yingying was scared silly. Run! Run your head. Chu Tian directly knocked her head. Truly useless. Don't tell others that you're with me in the future. Meng Yingying was not convinced. There were over 1,000 undead monsters awakened this time. These undead monsters had been sleeping in this large tomb for who knows how long, and now they were all very strong. There were even a few that were not inferior to true spirit realm experts. Meng Yingying had been raised by Chu Tian and she had never participated in any battles before. Although her cultivation was high, she was actually very weak, so when had she ever seen this kind of scene? Chu Tian patted the little fox. Go! The little fox immediately made its move. Its figure flickered and in an instant, it passed by the strongest undead monsters. Although the little fox's body looked like a small speck in their eyes, it was like a bullet hitting its prey. These powerful undead monsters collapsed upon contact. They were monsters without intelligence in the end. The little fox could easily swallow their soul flames. Chu Tian waved his hand and the demonic god priests began to summon. Several dozen summoned beasts surrounded them and the divine servants formed a barrier to block the attacks of these undead. A skeletal bird quickly charged over. The divine servants shattered it with a single punch. Meng Yingying was stunned. When did these things become this strong? Nonsense, how could the puppets I refine be mediocre? Chu Tiankai issued an order to the Yao God priests. Do you see these dead souls? I need large amounts of these spiritual bodies. If you help me collect more, this city lord will greatly reward you. The Fox clan priests finally understood. It was no wonder Chu Tian would find the demonic god priests. Chu Tian's main goal in coming here was to collect undead with spiritual bodies. In the entire Miracle City, only the demonic god religion was proficient in preserving souls. This was the foundation of their summoning techniques. The little fox completely suppressed the strongest undead, the summoned beasts, Chu Tian, and Meng Yingying blocked the other undead, and the demonic god priests took out bottles filled with strange runes. They used some unknown demonic technique to suck in the spiritual bodies of the undead souls one by one. Meng Yingying wasn't afraid after getting used to it. Although there were countless undead monsters, they couldn't do anything to them right now. Not to mention that they had city return scrolls, so they didn't need to worry about their safety at all. She asked in a strange voice, "Why are you collecting so many spirits?" "Don't ask so much, just do your work." The undead monsters in this place seemed like they could never be killed. After fighting for an entire half an hour, not only did the undead around them not decrease, there were even more of them. "City Lord, the soul-sealing bottles are already full. We can't store any more. The bottles in the hands of the demonic god priests were filled with purple soul energy that kept hitting the walls of the bottles, as if they would shatter the bottles at any moment. Enough, we're leaving. Chu Tian led everyone and began to retreat. However, before they left this strange tomb, he cast a glance into the distance. His gaze revealed a look of contemplation. This place was clearly not formed naturally. It was probably a place set up by an ancient powerhouse. So, what exactly was sealed here? It wasn't time yet. Now wasn't the time. Since the ruins weren't far from Miracle City, it wouldn't be too late to explore it later. When Chu Tian returned to the city, it was already dark. This trip's harvest wasn't bad. There were over 100 spirits sealed in the soul-sealing bottles that weren't weak. He directly brought these things to the laboratory. The gnomes were very surprised by Chu Tian's sudden rebellion. Clark asked in a curious voice, "City Lord, is this appropriate?" Chu Tian directly threw a blueprint to him. "Don't ask too much, go and prepare it immediately." The gnomes didn't dare be careless and immediately went to work. Meng Yingying looked at Chu Tian. "What medicine are you selling?" "Ask less and look more. How can you talk so much?" "I'm talking too much, annoying you to death." "Take this hit." Meng Yingying's round but was slapped. Meng Yingying angrily chased after him, but she was taken down by the divine servants in just 2-3 moves. How could she fight Chu Tian? She could only angrily say something and call her good sisters Nangong Yun and Vivian over. The three of them would beat him together. He really was a fool. Nangong Yun and Vivian were good at fighting, but the two of them worshipped Chu Tian, treating him like a god, so they didn't dare make a move against Chu Tian. While the two of them were bickering, the gnomes were already prepared. Clark stared at the source energy array on the ground. It was releasing a purple glow and was made up of several arrays. If his guesses weren't wrong, this was a soul-attributed array. Who had seen a soul-attributed array in this era before? The gnomes were all curious as they came over. A soul-sealing bottle was placed in the center of the array. With a pu sound, the bottle cap flew up. A dozen or so evil spirits rushed out, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Chu Tian calmly said, "Activate the array." The gnome priest quickly activated the array and the evil spirits were covered in light, immediately letting out sharp screams. These spirits were naturally formed vengeful spirits, so their resentment, hatred, and killing intent were too strong. Chu Tian's array could purify them one by one without killing them. Clark was very shocked. The source of the evil spirit's power was resentment and hatred, so they were good at spiritual attacks. If the negative energy was purified, in theory, it would be impossible for them to form a body. Chu Tian purified the evil spirits and kept them in their pure spiritual form. This was incredible. Of course, after being purified, they didn't have any energy left, leaving behind an empty spiritual body. These spirits are already in a stable state without any attacks because the spirits are made of soul energy and spiritual energy. These two things are the foundation of thinking. Chu Tian said this while making a few wrinkles. Then as long as the spirits are modified, they can obtain simple thinking abilities. This is the simplest form of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. Everyone's expressions changed. Chapter 899. Vivian knew about the existence of the Druids before she came to Miracle City. It said that the Druids could communicate with nature and had a strange transformation technique, allowing them to turn into any kind of demon beast. From a normal bird or small beast, they could freely change into any kind of fierce demon beast. This transformation was not just a change in form. The Druids' most powerful point was that they could completely duplicate the abilities of the demon beast they turned into. This was something that no cultivation technique could do, so it wasn't strange to say it was an ancient demonic technique. Coming to the Druid temple with Chu Tian this time, Vivian was naturally very curious. She immediately looked around. The Druids were not enthusiastic, but they all moved to the side, not daring to show any expression. After all, Chu Tian was the famous Miracle City's city lord and the Druids did have something to ask of him. On a stone platform in the center of the temple, Prophet Yoda's meter-long body was lying in a source energy array maintaining his life force. There were 2 druid high priests guarding him. This was the legendary druid prophet that had the ability to predict? Vivian was very puzzled. The legendary wise and powerful prophet, Wissen, did not look like a goblin or a gnome. It was too different from what she had imagined. At this moment, Prophet Yoda's body was covered in wrinkles. He was like a dehydrated frog or a tree bark that had been dried. Although there were no visible wounds on the surface, his life force was already drying up. Vivian said, "This is quite serious, he definitely won't last more than a few days." These words made the other druids dissatisfied. One of the druids said in a worried voice, "The prophet's injuries from the fight with the Lich Dragon have been stabilized by the medicine and method the City Lord sent. Only this injury has caused the old injuries to erupt, and this has caused the prophet's body to weaken. I'm afraid we won't be able to gather the materials." Chu Tian gave a slight nod. "What are you waiting for?" A bear tribe druid high priest anxiously shouted, "Since the City Lord has found a way to cure the prophet, then make a move. Can't you see that the high priest's life is in danger?" "Hey, what are you shouting for? What kind of attitude is this?" As an elf, Vivian hated this kind of cruel spirit beast. Now that she saw this kind of attitude, her heart was very unhappy. "Our big brother Chu Tian came to help, that is giving you druid's face, making it seem like we owe you." This bear tribe druid high priest had a fiery temper and immediately said, "Humph, if it wasn't for the druids helping to deal with the undead religion, would Prophet Yoda's old injuries have reopened? If it wasn't for the druids' help, Green City would have already been destroyed. If this human became the City Lord, how could there be any miracle city? Saying that you owe us isn't wrong." Vivian was just casually saying this. She never thought that this druid would be this unreasonable. She was so angry that she almost bit her cheeks. The city was destroyed. How could the druids be spared? You say it like the druids are selfless, but aren't you doing it for yourselves? If it wasn't for Big Brother Chu Tian killing the Lich, not to mention your prophet, not a single one of the druids who participated would have returned alive. How will this debt be settled? The bear tribe high priest stared at her. "Staring at me? Do you want to fight?" Vivian's personality was not as fiery as Nangong Yun's, but other than being obedient in front of Chu Tian and Meng Qinggu, she had never been afraid of anyone. So she rolled up her sleeves and revealed her snow-white wrist. "Stupid bears like you, I've beaten more than 10 of them before." Seeking death. The bear tribe druid high priest angrily roared and his body released a dazzling light. His body instantly swelled 5-6 times and his leather armor burst open. His mane wildly grew as he turned into a giant beast. Vivian narrowed her eyes and the space around her trembled. A dagger appeared in the air and a strong aura instantly locked onto this giant beast. It was as if the dagger only needed to move a little and it would cut the other side to pieces. Space attributed source spirit. The druids were all shocked. Vivian looked like she was only 14 years old, but her cultivation wasn't low. She was in the peak 4th true spirit layer and she had spatial energy that normal people couldn't defend against, so it wasn't hard for her to kill several high priest level druids. The druids were all on guard and they all prepared to make a move. Chu Tian crossed his arms in front of his chest like he was watching a play, but he was muttering in his heart. These druids really were unreasonable. If they weren't properly taught a lesson, perhaps they would cause trouble for Miracle City in the future. A druid high priest came forward. This was a rare eagle race spirit beast. He had a pair of giant wings and his feet were like eagle claws. The eagle race was silent and they weren't as violent as the bear people, so he immediately came forward to stop them. The City Lord came to save the prophet out of kindness and you still made a move against them. Do you not care about the druid religion? What did the prophet teach us? If you want to fight, I don't recommend it. Chu Tian slowly said, "Only, I think I forgot to introduce you. This is Vivian from the Eternal Forest. She is Miracle City's Vice City Lord, the Eternal Forest's Elven King's youngest daughter, and also the most talented elven wings in the Eternal Forest." These words were like a bolt of lightning hitting the druids. The Elven King's youngest daughter? This elven girl was actually the Elven King's youngest daughter? The bear man's high priest was speechless and returned to his original appearance. Even if the druids were rebellious, would they dare make a move against the Elven King's daughter? Not to mention whether they could win or not, just the Elven King representing the Eternal Forest was not something any local power could resist. Sorry, the druids were too impulsive this time. The Eagle Race's druid high priest stared at the bear man and immediately went in front of Chu Tian and Vivian. As long as we can save Sir Prophet, the druids are willing to pay any price. I hope the city lord does not mind. Of course I don't mind. Chu Tian did not have any temper at all. But, since the druids like to settle accounts, then I might as well calculate it. You said that Yoda brought people to help deal with the Lich, I admit this. But without the skin, where can the hair go? The druids did not make a move just for the city. I also saved Yoda from the Lich Dragon and sent him the medicine as soon as I returned, so the two sides are even on this matter. The Eagle Race's druid high priest was very embarrassed. Yes, the city lord is right. Then we'll count it another way. Chu Tian took out a star marrow pill. This is to save Master Yoda. This city lord personally brought people into the underground world, killed 18 fierce beasts, collected 8 kinds of immortal herbs, and refined this pill using an ancient recipe. I think that there is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. I won't ask for a high price, so you can buy it for 500,000 source stones. 500,000 source stones? How could the druids have that many source stones? The druids did not have any source of income. Not to mention 500,000 source stones, they couldn't even take out 50,000 or even 5,000. Chu Tian put away the pill. This city lord has something to do, so I'll be leaving first. When you have enough money, you can come find me. After saying this, Chu Tian looked like he was about to leave. City lord. The druids were all panicking. You can't be this heartless. Heartless? I also want to talk about feelings, but you're talking about benefits with me. Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but in my eyes, the druids are just a group of people that only remember grudges and not kindness, so what feelings do I have? I saved Yoda today, but who knows that in a few days, you'll rebel against me. Instead of taking this risk, I might as well make the first move. The druids broke out in a cold sweat. When Chu Tian said this, it was as if he wanted to fall out with the druids. Right now Miracle City was ruled by Chu Tian alone. Not only did he have the gnomes' approval, he also had the support of most of the shaman religion and several tribes. If Chu Tian wanted to kill the druids, he would definitely have the ability to take advantage of Yoda being heavily injured to eliminate the druids. Vivian, let's go. Vivian released her spatial energy and prepared to leave with Chu Tian. City Lord. Wait. The druids all came over. The bear tribe's high priest's expression changed. He knew that he had caused a large disaster. This calm-looking city lord was not an easy person to deal with. I am willing to swear in the name of the druid god that I will be loyal to Miracle City and will not do anything against the druids. Chu Tian finally raised his hand. He had Vivian stop the spatial teleportation. The other druids knew what to do, so they angrily swore that they would never betray Miracle City. The druids swore in the name of the god they believed in, so this kind of oath was more trustworthy. This city lord does not like killing and fighting. Everyone should live a good life and earn money together. What's wrong with that? Chu Tian shook his head and said, Prophet Yoda is a wise person. Miracle City needs this kind of wise person. Although you have disappointed me, I am still willing to give you a discount, 100,000 source stones. The druid wanted to cry. Sir City Lord, the druids don't have any wealth. We really can't take this out. Another druid priest said, we can slowly pay back the source stones, but the prophet's situation can't be dragged on. You're right. Chu Tian patted his head and took out several scrolls. Then we'll make several spiritual contracts. The 100,000 source stones will be the druid temple's debt to Miracle City, and I'll give the druids 3 years to work for Miracle City. This contract needs all the high priests to sign, and as long as they accept the conditions, I'll immediately save the prophet. Perhaps it wasn't a sudden idea. These contracts had been prepared a long time ago. If they had a bit of a brain, they would have realized that they had fallen into the city lord's trap. But did they have a choice? So, we'll sign. 100,000 source stones was not a small number, but to save Prophet Yoda, the Druids were willing to pay any price. Under the lead of the Bear Tribe's Druid High Priest, all the High Priests came forward to sign the contract with Chu Tian. Chu Tian revealed a cunning smile as if his plan had succeeded. Chapter 900. Artificial intelligence was a very advanced concept. It would be strange if primitive people like Clark and Meng Yingying could understand it. Artificial intelligence was artificial intelligence. This kind of thing could not be considered a life form, nor could it be considered an undead. It was just a tool that could think. Since it had intelligence, it could think. Since it could think, it could learn. Since it could learn, it could progress. This was the difference between artificial intelligence and normal puppets. Because the spiritual body's level isn't high enough, it can only form basic intelligence. Chu Tian said to the several artificial intelligence that had already been modified, "This kind of spiritual body has formed intelligence, but it can't form its own consciousness. Therefore, it is an excellent intelligent tool. It will never be tired, annoyed, or afraid. In the future, it can be used in many different fields, which will greatly increase our efficiency." The gnomes were deeply shocked. Artificial intelligence could control most knowledge through autonomous learning, so it was hard to imagine their future potential. Whether it was city management or laboratory research, artificial intelligence would occupy a very important position. This was because artificial intelligence was a kind of existence that did not have emotions. They could think, but they did not have their own consciousness. They were absolutely fair, absolutely calm, and absolutely observable. They really never would have thought. Chu Tian had casually created such an amazing thing. Meng Yingying did not think much about it, but she knew that with tens of thousands of artificial intelligence, it was the same as tens of thousands of scholars that would never get tired. The Yun sect's research efficiency would be greatly increased. Clark quickly asked, "Sir City Lord, can you prepare a batch of these artificial intelligence for the research base?" This kind of low-level artificial intelligence is very easy to produce. With the millions of undead spirits in the death ruins, it is not a problem for us to produce as many as we want. Chu Tian shook his head when he said this. The biggest problem is how to train them. Although artificial intelligence will never get tired, this kind of low-level artificial intelligence has a limit to their intelligence, so their learning speed is very slow. If we want them to learn how to speak and learn various skills, it would take at least 5-8 years. If we want them to learn enough knowledge, it would take several decades or even 100 years. The gnomes disagreed. The gnomes could live for several hundred years and the spiritual bodies had an unlimited lifespan. If they could train a group of spiritual bodies from scratch and pass it down, after several thousand years, these fellows would all become peak masters. Chu Tian of course knew what they were thinking. Although artificial intelligence can always exist, artificial intelligence has a limited memory space. This kind of low-level artificial intelligence can only learn how to speak and communicate. At most they can learn some basic knowledge. Once their memory space is filled, they will not be able to progress any further. There's a limit to growth? Clark knit his brows. Then what should we do? If it was just normal daily communication and assistant work, it would release a lot of hard work and brainless work. Artificial intelligence could save people quite a bit of work, but it could not create more value. There are two ways to change this. The first is to create a higher-level artificial intelligence. Chu Tian threw something at Clark. Come, first purify this thing. This is the Lich's soul flame. Clark recognized it with a single glance. This was the Lich's soul flame that Chu Tian found in the Lich Dragon's remains after his battle with the Lich Dragon. It contained all of the Lich's memories and wisdom. Clark was very curious as to why Chu Tian kept it, but now Clark finally understood. This soul flame could also be used to create an artificial intelligence. The soul flame needed a carrier. Chu Tian disassembled 10 spirits and used an array to refine them into one. Then he purified the Lich's soul flame. Although this Lich had lived for over 2,000 years, it had already lost all of its emotions. However, its consciousness had not been completely eliminated. Chu Tian did not need an artificial intelligence that still had its own consciousness. Combine. The lich's soul flame was poured into the new body. The spirit body's appearance instantly changed, turning into the lich's previous appearance. A large robe covered its body and a pair of red eyes were revealed from the hood. Only it was different from the previous lich. This was a spirit body. The lich's power had completely disappeared, but its memories and wisdom were preserved. From today onwards, your name will be Zero. Understood, Sir City Lord. There was a fluctuation around zero and the sound of the air vibrating was transmitted to everyone's ears. This voice was very mechanical, without any emotions or consciousness at all. This was completely different from the spirit body he had just created. This was a high-level artificial intelligence. Whether it was its current knowledge or its future learning potential, it was not something a low-level artificial intelligence could compare to. Chu Tian asked, Clark, what do you think? This is truly a wonderful technology. Clark's words were not empty words. He never would have dreamed that Chu Tian would turn the lich into an intelligent puppet. From now on, the lich's 2,000 years of accumulated wisdom and memories could all be used by Chu Tian, only Sir City Lord. This kind of artificial intelligence is very hard to make. What is the City Lord's second method? The second method. Chu Tian deliberately dragged out his voice, that is to use the artificial intelligence as the core of the computer and have it be implanted into the source energy computer. Even if it is a low-level artificial intelligence, as long as it is combined with the source energy computer's powerful calculation, storage, and analysis abilities, it will become an unimaginable existence. The gnomes were stunned. What was Sir City Lord saying? Why couldn't they understand it all? At this time, Vivian used the communication device to contact Chu Tian. She told Chu Tian that she had arrived in the southern summer country's central state and that the transport tower was currently being constructed. It would only take half a day before it could be used. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. I'm too lazy to explain, it's better to see it with my own eyes than to say it. Clark, come with me to the southern summer country. Sir City Lord, you. What did you say? Clark has lived in the forest for 380 years and has never left the forest before. He never thought he would leave the forest one day because the forest of chaos is just too big. There are enough resources and space inside, enough for the gnomes to live and reproduce. Go to the southern summer country? A human country? That's right, Vice City Lord Vivian has already prepared the transport tower. It won't take long for the two sides to connect. Clark never dreamed that he would leave the forest of chaos one day and he would be heading to a human country. When Vivian finished building the transport tower in Central State City, Chu Tian brought a large group of people to Miracle City's transport tower. He first tested the other side's spatial coordinates and confirmed that they could be transported. Chu Tian did not waste time. Everyone prepare yourselves, the spatial journey is about to begin. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Tian activated the transport array. The space began to slightly tremble as an invisible energy quickly gathered, condensing into a hard-to-see spatial force field. When the spatial structure began to change, the elements in the air were pushed away, finally releasing a dazzling white light. It was unknown how long it had been since he had experienced this feeling. When Chu Tian lived in the future 30,000 years in the future, there were transport towers and space gates everywhere. He even needed to use them to pee, so after transmigrating to this era, these things were very precious. The light disappeared. Chu Tian's surroundings completely changed. The green mountains were gone, the waterfalls were gone, the forests were gone, and what replaced it was a large human-style palace. Yun Tianhe, Gu Qianxiu, the countless Yun sect scholars, the Southern Summer King, the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others were all gathered here, witnessing this miracle together. Success! Gu Qianxiu and Yun Tianhe roared out. Each scholar cheered out. The Southern Summer King, the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others were all filled with excitement. Before Chu Tian was teleported over, they couldn't believe that this was real. How could there be such a magical technology in this world? Now they were told that there was nothing impossible in this world. At least it was like this for Chu Tian. Greetings to the country guarding ruler. Greetings to the country guarding ruler. Greetings to the Cloud Dream Marquis. White light flashed around Chu Tian. Meng Qingwu, Meng Yingying, and Nangong Yun, these people that he had not seen for a long time, had all returned to the southern summer country. These people were simply legends of the southern summer country. Especially Chu Tian, he was like a god that was worshipped by the entire southern summer country. His status was not inferior to the southern summer kings. Chu Tian laughed as he walked over. Everyone, long time no see. Greetings to the southern summer king. The southern summer king gave a bitter laugh, not knowing what to say. The white light flashed again. Clark was sent over. When everyone saw him, they all revealed shocked expressions. The gnomes did not have much contact with humans, and this was a race that had only been seen in books. They never thought that they would see one in front of them. But compared to the humans' shock, Clark's brain had simply short-circuited. When he appeared in the southern summer country's royal palace, when he saw the various humans around him and felt the different environment, he almost suspected that he had not woken up yet. This is the gnome Great Elder Clark. Although he does not have the title of a scholar, he is very knowledgeable. It is entirely possible for him to become a country scholar or even a country scholar. Chu Tian gave a simple introduction. Elder Clark, this is the southern summer country, a small human country to the north of the forest of chaos. Everyone was filled with deep respect. So it's an expert from the forest of chaos. The southern summer king nodded. Since it is an honored guest, the southern summer country will not neglect you. We will immediately hold a banquet to entertain our guests and also to welcome the country guarding ruler and the Cloud Dream Marquis. There's no need for a banquet. Chu Tian did not come back to eat and drink. I want to see the source energy computer. Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianqiu were interested. Yes, Chairman, please come with us. Chapter 901. Since the Druids admitted defeat, Chu Tian did not make it hard for them. He immediately gave the Star Marrow pill to Vivian and had Prophet Yoda take it. The Druids were filled with apprehension. Although they had suffered a large loss, as long as Prophet Yoda was cured, the Druids were willing to pay this price. Wasn't it just owing Miracle City 100,000 source stones? This number was not a small number, but with the work of the several hundred Druid priests in the Druid temple, they could repay 10-20,000 every year, and they could repay it in 4-5 years. Vivian was a bit nervous in her heart. The Druids were not easy to deal with. If Chu Tian ruthlessly slaughtered them and didn't achieve the desired effect, the Druids would rebel again and Chu Tian's prestige as the city lord would be greatly reduced. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes passed. After Yoda took the Star Marrow pill, his skinny body slowly recovered a bit of vitality. There was a faint glow of starlight surrounding his body, and it was like rain on a dry land, making his wrinkled skin recover its vitality. It seems like it's effective. The Druids all revealed looks of pleasant surprise. This pill seemed ordinary without any extraordinary abilities, but the effect was this immediate. It seemed like the city lord was not lying. This was a rare immortal pill. Whether it was the materials or the refining method, it was all impeccable. The prophet is awake. The prophet is awake. The Druids cried out in joy. Yoda was already slowly regaining consciousness. Vivian saw that the Druids were this happy and she felt very proud in her heart. Big Brother Chu Tian was really powerful. This dying person was actually revived by a single pill. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. Prophet Yoda, how do you feel? Yoda was the spiritual pillar of the Druid religion. Although the Druid religion had several high priests, just the high priest alone couldn't stabilize the religion. Once something happened to Yoda, the Druids would split. It wouldn't just be the Druid religion's problem, but rather the entire Miracle City's problem. Chu Tian didn't want Miracle City's conscription to go wrong. Yoda woke up and was stunned for half a second. He was surprised to find that his body had changed. The injuries from my battle with the Lich Dragon have completely healed and the old injuries are clearly improving. This is... The Druids were overjoyed. This meant that the prophet would quickly recover his full strength. At that time, Yoda would be a peak spirit transformation true spirit expert. Chu Tian already expected this. You've taken the pill I refined and these small injuries will naturally be healed. However, you don't need to thank me because this pill was sold to your druid temple, it was just a fair trade. Yoda didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he understood what was going on. Actually, with Yoda's wisdom, how could he not guess that Miracle City would make a move against the druids? No matter how magnanimous a ruler was, they wouldn't tolerate a group of troublemakers in their territory that didn't listen to orders. However, Yoda never thought that Chu Tian would use this kind of method. 100,000 source stones isn't considered much. Chu Tian gave a suggestion. I'm prepared to set up a staff department in Miracle City and have Prophet Yoda be Miracle City's chief staff officer with an annual salary of 10,000 source stones. Are you interested? The druid was infuriated again. Chu Tian actually wanted the druid's great prophet to be his subordinate. This was simply an insult to the druid religion and the druid god. Yoda was a bit hesitant, he didn't agree or reject. I want to remind everyone here that the current Miracle City is no longer the Green City of the past. Chu Tian spoke in a calm and dignified manner. The person in charge has changed and the rules have also changed. I respect the druid culture and I can set up an autonomous region in the city, but within my city, all citizens must follow Miracle City's rules. There are no exceptions and no exceptions. He already said this. Could the druids refuse? Chu Tian was also lenient, giving the druids enough freedom. Miracle City would not interfere with the druids' internal affairs, but the druids had to follow Miracle City's rules. With a city lord like you in Miracle City, the Forest of Chaos will have a new heaven and earth. Yoda said in an emotional voice, I agree to the city lord's request. I am willing to use my meager wisdom to help Miracle City prosper. The druids were all stunned. The noble and mysterious prophet actually agreed to this kind of request. I believe in Prophet Yoda's promise. From today on, Prophet Yoda will be Miracle City's chief of staff and high-ranking scholar. I believe you will not regret your choice today. Chu Tian took a step back and cupped his hands. Since it's like this city lord won't bother you any longer. Prophet Yoda has not fully recovered and needs to rest. I will wait for the prophet's arrival in the city lord's castle. Vivian reached out her hand. The two of them disappeared in a spatial tremble. Sir Prophet, the druid said with a complicated expression, do we really have to submit to the rule of this human? That's right. We do not need to submit to a human. The druids are free, how could we be controlled by a human? Submit, how could we submit? Yoda sat down on the platform. I can't see Miracle City's future, but I can say for sure that this city will undergo an earth-shattering change. The druids wander around the forest and never have a true home, so I think we should find a stable place to live. After tonight, the druids will not only have to follow Miracle City's rules, they will also have to actively enter the world. The druids and the high priests were very shocked. The druids always had a neutral attitude. Unless their survival was threatened, they would not participate in any disputes. Yoda wanted everyone to actively enter the world, which was completely contrary to the druids' teachings. But the druids never doubted the prophet's words. If Prophet Yoda said this, then it must be reasonable and would be beneficial to the druids. These druids never doubted the prophet, not to mention the other druids. Although they were a bit confused, everyone accepted it. Yoda's clear eyes flashed with a few rays of light before he slowly closed them. Vivian brought Chu Tian to a grassland. There was a fast-flowing stream and hundreds of flowers were blooming. Butterflies flew through the bushes and there were wild deer and rabbits running away. There were mountains all around them that reached into the clouds. How did this look like a city? It was simply a quiet forest park. If they walked forward for another 10 miles, they would arrive at the arena for the recruitment. This kind of city was too spacious and too big, it was almost like a small country. There was enough space for humans to build several large cities. Big brother, is that dwarf very strong? Vivian thought about it. When he woke up, I didn't think I could win against him. If he recovers his strength, perhaps he would be a spirit transformation expert. Vivian was basically the second strongest expert in Miracle City. At least with the void escaping and the spatial dagger's offensive power, There weren't many Heaven Spirit Realm experts that could fight her, but there was nothing she could do if she met a spirit transformation expert. Miracle City still needs a strong enough person to oversee it, not to mention that Yoda has enough wisdom and knowledge. Whether it is managing the city or participating in the laboratory research, he can become an important person. You've done this and made the druids submit. When Big Sister Meng Qingwu finds out, she will definitely be very happy. The last obstacle in Miracle City had been swept away. Now was the time for the city to truly develop. Chu Tian's communication device rang at this time. It was actually Dolores calling. Chu Tian hadn't seen this coquettish fox girl in several days, and he didn't know where she had run off to. It was said that Meng Qingwu sent her out to do something, but it seemed like she had already returned to Miracle City. Let's go to the City Lord's castle. Vivian used her spatial energy without saying anything else. Dolores was in the magnificent hall of the City Lord's castle, playing with the communication device in her hand. Although she didn't know the principle behind it, this thing Chu Tian made was just too easy to use. No matter where the other person was, she could immediately contact them without any hindrance. There was a spatial fluctuation. Vivian had brought Chu Tian back here. Chu Tian looked at the travel-worn Dolores. I haven't seen you in so many days. Where did you run off to? You're still talking? A respected great city lord doesn't even know what his subordinates are doing. Dolores helplessly rolled her eyes at him. I've mobilized over 500 clansmen and have already formed a fox caravan. They are going in different directions to open a trade route for Miracle City. The gnomes. This was basically an isolated city. The gnomes were good at studying, but they weren't good at doing business. The city's income came from the taxes of foreign merchants. Now that the master had changed and Miracle Commerce was a business organization, adding in Meng Qingwu's merchant background as the vice city lord, naturally they would use Miracle City's superior location to do business. It was expected that Meng Qingwu would use the fox people to do this. Chu Tian had also considered this before. The fox people were natural merchants. I came back with a city returning scroll to report a few things. Dolores patted her waist where there were 2 scrolls. But speaking of this thing is very useful. Nonsense. Do you know how precious a scroll is right now? Miracle Commerce only had these few transport scrolls. Although Chu Tian had obtained a large pile of Eyes of the Star, he didn't have time to make them yet. It seemed like Meng Qingwu had given the remaining scrolls to Dolores so that she could report back to the city at any time. Dolores didn't beat around the bush and directly said, "We've already contacted many powerful tribes, towns, and even cities far away. Almost all of them are very interested in our products. This is a good thing. But we've also encountered some problems." Dolores gave a faint sigh. I came back to discuss this matter, but the Vice City Lord is in closed-door cultivation. Although I'm very unwilling, I can only discuss it with you. You're saying it like I'm very willing. Chapter 902. There was a large change in the southern summer country. Central State City's population had increased by 1/3 compared to when Chu Tian left, and it was twice as prosperous as before. This was not only because Central State City had become the Southern Summer Imperial City, but also because it was the birthplace of Miracle Commerce. Miracle Commerce had a large laboratory in Central State City and a large industrial park, which directly increased the growth of Central State City. Especially after Miracle Commerce's space warehouse was opened, Miracle Commerce often sold resources from the Forest of Chaos to the Southern Summer Country, which greatly increased the Southern Summer Country's strength. At this moment, people like the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others had all broken through their bottlenecks. The 2 of them were now experts in the first true spirit layer. The barbarian berserkers trained in the Southern State Berserker Training Camp were also hired by the Southern Summer Country. They also bought large amounts of source energy weapons from Miracle Commerce's arsenal and used the 4 states' lake as a natural barrier, so it was hard for the Warhound's kingdom to take any advantage. Now that the Southern Summer Country had recovered its strength, it was not weaker than before. The Southern Summer Country quickly became famous in a short period of time. Now there were caravans coming to the southern summer country from the surrounding countries to buy Miracle Commerce's products. Therefore, although the southern summer citizens still used southern summer gold coins in large transactions, they began to use source stones. This was a sign of connecting with the international market. The southern summer country becoming the great summer country was just around the corner. Clark walked on the streets of Central State City and felt like he was in another world. There were several dozen airships flying in the sky and tall buildings. There were all kinds of large screens, showing all kinds of eye-catching advertisements and the sound of horns coming from the streets. There were fewer beast carriages on the streets. Most likely due to Miracle Commerce's influence, Central State was a very innovative place. The Source Energy battery-powered Source Energy hover cars had already appeared, and there were quite a few people using this new convenient transportation tool. They were like beetles moving through the streets of the city. This was truly too shocking. How could a small country like the southern summer country develop to this point? The prosperity and wealth of the human cities far surpassed Clark's imagination. He did not dare believe that this was the capital of a small country. The rise of the humans in the last few hundred years was not without reason. Perhaps in another few thousand years, the elves and spirit beasts' limelight would be suppressed by the humans. The Central State Laboratory had already undergone a large change. After Chu Tian left Central State, he took a part of the business with him and placed it in the Southern State Laboratory. The Central State Laboratory focused on the source energy computer and expanded it several times, reaching twice its original size. There were over 2,000 people working on the source energy computer. With Chu Tian providing the core technology and ideas, the research team of over 2,000 people went through over 135,000 adjustments and experiments before finally completing something that surpassed this era. The Central State Laboratory members knew that Chu Tian was coming, so they all ran out to welcome him. Chu Tian saw several familiar figures among them, like the Lin siblings, the two founders of the Heavens Alliance. Now that the citizens had joined Miracle Commerce and had become official researchers of the Yun sect, they were young and promising, making people envious. They were walking on the path of realizing their dreams. Greetings to the chairman and vice chairman. Everyone excitedly bowed down, almost kneeling down to Chu Tian and Lin Sun. These were all scholars from all over the country. A portion of them had never seen Chu Tian before and could only understand him through Chu Tian's image and deeds. Now that Chu Tian had become a god worshipped by the entire southern summer country, with this legendary person appearing in front of them, how could these people not be excited? Chu Tian was very surprised. There are so many people? Of course. Gu Qianqiu had already broken through to the true spirit realm, and he looked much younger than before. Perhaps it was because his life was more fulfilling and filled with energy. Not only are there southern summer scholars, there are also many people who didn't hesitate to travel thousands of miles, coming from other countries to study in the southern summer country. They have all become Yun sect scholars, and there are even 4 great scholars. Chu Tian nodded. Not bad, not bad. The Yun sect can be considered strong. With the Yun sect becoming stronger, the happiest person was of course old man Yun Tianhe. The Yun sect originated from the Central State Yun family. The Yun family was a small country's family, but now they were able to use this method to become famous and they could participate in the Yun sect's research. This was truly a breakthrough. The Yun sect's current strength did not seem strong. Among the gnomes that Chu Tian had allied with, in terms of academic level, there were at least several hundred great scholars. However, the geographical isolation would cause academic isolation. The human scholars and gnome scholars did not have the same research methods, so they needed to communicate with each other in order to integrate. Not to mention that the Yun sect was created by Chu Tian. Gu Qianqiu, Yun Tianhe, and the other Yun sect scholars had been studying with Chu Tian for an entire year, so they had grasped large amounts of Miracle Commerce's core technology. This was a gap that no scholar in the world could catch up to, so they couldn't be judged by their knowledge alone. Chu Tian's group began to tour the Central State Laboratory. Although Central State's Yun sect's research facility had been moved to Southern State, this was Miracle Commerce's earliest research facility, so it was still the place where Miracle Commerce's technology was gathered the most. Almost every miracle commerce product and technology was stored. I suggest that Great Elder Clark form a group of scholars when he returns and have the gnome scholars come to Central State for a period of time. What do you think? That's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I want. Clark was already deeply shocked by miracle commerce. Clark finally understood Chu Tian's background, but he also felt a large opportunity and future. Most of the gnomes were scholars. Miracle City's resources were stronger than Central State's, and Miracle City's research facility was larger than Central State's. Moreover, Chu Tian had already made Miracle Commerce their headquarters, so the Yun sect's future headquarters would be in Miracle City. The gnomes would have a large opportunity. If they could join the Yun sect, the gnomes would have a decisive position in the Yun sect. This was enough for the gnomes to go down in history, becoming the representative of the continent's scholars, pioneers of invention and innovation, becoming a large influential clan in another way. Yun Tianhe opened the door to a laboratory. Rows of drawer-like black boxes appeared in front of them. When one of the black boxes was pulled out, each box was filled with source energy array slabs. There were 6 of these black boxes, forming a hexagon. They were all connected to each other, forming a large complex source energy matrix. This source energy matrix was made up of over 10 arrays, and each array had over 100 source energy arrays. There were over 300,000 runes, and it needed around 10 energy columns to operate at the same time. These are the main computers. They are the first-generation source energy matrix. Yun Tianhe said in a very proud voice, "This source energy matrix contains over 300 source energy array processing centers and 8 information storage arrays. Its calculation speed can reach 500 million times per second, which is enough to handle a large amount of information." 500 million calculations per second? Clark revealed a stunned expression. With this kind of powerful calculation ability, if it was used in source energy array deductions or experiments, how much of a help would it be? 500 million? Chu Tian shook his head. Too slow. This was still slow? Everyone didn't know what to say. Not to mention the size is too big. Chu Tian looked at the 6 large black boxes and shook his head. We need to increase the strength of the source energy matrix and shrink the size of the source energy matrix. Otherwise, a single source energy matrix would take up the entire room. It would be too cumbersome and it would be hard to popularize. Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianxiu wiped their sweat. The chairman's request could scare people to death. This source energy matrix calculation system took over a year to make. Could it be that he wanted to promote this to the entire world? That was simply a joke. Chu Tian said, "We are preparing to make an automatic array engraving device. With an intelligent computer, array masters won't need to personally carve runes one by one in the future. All the talismans and alchemy production will be automated and the production efficiency will increase." The automatic array engraving device needed source stones to operate. Because the source energy contained in source stones was the closest to the human body, it could be used to make source energy arrays. Source energy batteries were an industrial energy source that could maintain source energy arrays, but they couldn't be used to make source energy arrays. So, the array engraving device would cost a lot, but it would free up large amounts of labor, allowing them to increase their technology. Gu Qianxiu said, "This array is still missing a core." "There's no need for you to say it, I've brought it." Chu Tian gently waved his hand and the artificial intelligence Zero was released. Zero, begin the fusion. Zero's incorporeal body floated to the center of the giant array. There was a crystal there and Zero's body melted into it. Almost in an instant, an invisible energy spread out and the entire array was activated. Chu Tian directly asked, "Zero, how do you feel?" Zero's voice came from the array. "The entire array has been connected to me." "Is Zero really that strong?" Meng Yingying was a bit in disbelief. "You wouldn't be bragging, right?" Chu Tian snappily said, "If you don't believe me, you can test him." "I'll test him." Meng Yingying loudly asked a series of questions. "Zero, let me ask you, 2525413 multiplied by 434242 divided by 21,343 multiplied by 43,543 added by 654,245 multiplied by 143,432. What is the final result? Zero answered without any hesitation. Meng Ying spent more than 10 minutes to calculate it once. Finally, she discovered that there was not even the slightest error. The hundreds of digits after the decimal point were calculated clearly. She immediately revealed an expression of admiration. Chu Tian was amused by Meng Ying. You want to ask Zero this kind of child's play question? Meng Qingwu never thought that the combination of the artificial intelligence and the source energy matrix calculation system would have such a shocking effect. If we bring this source energy computer to Miracle City, we can use it to manage Miracle City's accounts, bank data, citizens' information, and even city planning. I think it would be very convenient. How could it be just like that? Chu Tian said with a faint smile. The source energy matrix calculation system's calculation speed cannot be compared to the human brain. Using it to create a spiritual space will be more stable. Using it to invent new source energy arrays will be more outstanding. Using it to control source energy weapons will be more terrifying. Using it to control production will be more precise. And in the future, when the calculation power increases by several hundred or thousand times, we can even use it to calculate all kinds of changes. In short, its functions are not something you can imagine. That's right. Zero was the continent's first super source energy computer. Although it couldn't compare to humans in terms of invention and creation, it could not be compared to normal people in terms of logic and calculation. It had already reached the realm of spiritual gods. Chu Tian ordered, "Young miss, send Zero to Miracle City. You will be the only person with the highest authority over Zero other than me. From now on, Zero will be Miracle City's management system. I believe that with this thing, Miracle City's development will increase by a large amount." Meng Qingwu asked, "When will the second one be made?" Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe looked at each other. "I'm afraid it will take at least a month." "That long?" Chu Tian shook his head and said, "Recruit more people, I'll have the gnomes help you. First create the array machine, we don't have that much time to make them one by one. This thing needs to be mass-produced, it needs to be smaller and smaller, and its computing speed needs to be faster." The birth of an intelligent computer. This was Chu Tian's true beginning. Chapter 903. Chu Tian was depressed, but he didn't care about it with his personality. He was happy to be idle anyways. Dolores's Fox Caravan had opened a trade route for Miracle City and they had already obtained initial results. They had basically settled in the nearby small towns and were negotiating with the local tribes, even trying to establish contact with other forest cities. "We are prepared to build a large-scale miracle shopping center." Dolores told Chu Tian her idea. "The first batch will be placed in over 20 small towns to test the effects. We will be working with over 100 tribes this time, selling Miracle City's products and sharing the forest resources, creating the largest supermarket in the forest." Miracle Shopping Center concept? Meng Qingwu had already mentioned it in the southern summer country's South Sky City. The Miracle Shopping Center was a large-scale general merchandise platform and a supermarket built by the company. Miracle Commerce's products would be the main product, clearly marked, sold on the shelves, and sold in a regulated manner, with chain stores all over the country. This platform would also bring in the products of powerful companies and families from all over the country, making the shopping center more complete and competitive. Meng Qingwu's idea was very far-sighted and she had a lot of potential. The only mistake was Miracle Commerce's development speed. Miracle Commerce had only spent a year rising from South Sky City to jumping out of the southern summer country. There were also canned food, magnetic sound machines, source energy weapons, and other products with great potential. The Miracle Shopping Center's development speed couldn't keep up with the company's development speed, so Miracle Commerce's revenue wasn't large. Therefore, it was quite useless in the southern summer country. Meng Qingwu once again brought up the idea of the forest supermarket. This was not only because Miracle Commerce's position was different from before, Miracle Commerce itself was also different from before. Miracle Commerce's spatial technology had made large progress over the past few months. The Miracle Shopping Center would completely change and become the largest supermarket chain in the forest in a way that surpassed people's imaginations. The Forest of Chaos was very big and rich in resources. Why were the forest races so poor? Why were there so few merchants from outside the forest that came to do business? The main reason was that the forest environment was too complicated and dangerous. There were ferocious aborigines everywhere, and bandits who blocked the road were everywhere. 90% of the powers in the forest followed the Dark Forest Law and did not dare show themselves. Every time the forest merchants came to the Forest of Chaos to do business, it was a gamble of life and death. These contradictions affected the development of the Forest of Chaos, and it was because of these contradictions that Meng Qingwu saw a large opportunity. The Miracle Shopping Center could change this situation. The Miracle Shopping Center was no longer a large physical shopping center in South Sky City. Rather, it was a higher level, more suitable, more convenient, and more flexible existence. It combined the already mature Miracle Commerce communication technology, sound and image transmission, air transportation technology, as well as the currently starting, but already beginning to be used space and spiritual technology. Dolores gave an example. We are prepared to open virtual shopping centers in 20 small towns, using image-transferring mirrors to display products. The important products will be directly tested in spiritual experience stores, and each store will be connected to Miracle City, allowing customers to directly ask questions from a distance. This way, we don't need a large store and we can have tens of thousands of products. Chu Tian nodded. That sounds pretty good. That's not all. We can use the Miracle Broadcasting Station and the Miracle Television Station to advertise and buy products. For example, we can use the Miracle Shopping Center's hot products, event products, or the newest products to broadcast or send pictures and videos to various places. It's best if people can buy things without leaving their homes. Vivian was confused hearing this. How will we send these things to our customers? That will depend on the space technology you are in charge of. Dolores became more excited the more she spoke. Although with Miracle Commerce's current level, we can't open a personal storage warehouse for everyone, but we can collect orders and send them to various cities and towns. If there are large orders from tribes, we can use airships to send them. This way, there will be almost no risk. In doing business in the Forest of Chaos, risk was always number one. This risk mainly came from the outside world, but with Miracle Commerce's method of doing business, not only was it fast and convenient, it also had almost zero risk. Miracle Commerce did not just sell their own products, they could also sell products from the southern summer country and other places. The large tribes chose to cooperate with Miracle Commerce and they sold their products on the Miracle Shopping Center's platform. Not only could they sell it to the various cities and towns in the forest, they could even sell it to countries outside the Forest of Chaos. When the products were no longer restricted by region, the price would naturally rise and the benefits would be unimaginable. Miracle Commerce's platform would not only create a large amount of value, it would also allow them to gather large amounts of resources for themselves. It would also allow the locals of the forest to become rich, allowing the Forest of Chaos to undergo an earth-shattering change. Vivian's blood boiled hearing this. It was just like what Vivian thought when the space warehouse was built. This was a large benefit to the elves. For example, the elves' tea leaves, artwork, and various treasures. If they were sold locally, they wouldn't be worth much, but if they were sold to the human empires, they could be sold for over 100 times the price. Didn't the elves not like interacting with the outside world? Now they could ship these things to Miracle City and have Miracle City sell them in the shopping center. At worst, they could just split the profits and the elves could obtain benefits they didn't even dare believe before. In the future, the elves could use the Miracle Shopping Center to buy products from all over the continent. As long as they paid the money, these goods could be sent from all over the world to the Eternal Forest, to the secret area where the elves lived, allowing the elves' lives to be greatly improved. Too great. Good, it really is very good. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said in a confused voice, "What is so difficult about this? Miracle Commerce is still too small right now, We don't have enough manpower to send people to build the shopping center. Moreover, as the shopping center becomes larger and larger, our shopping center team will become larger and larger. Finally, we will become bloated and it will be hard to manage. Dolores said with a sigh, there is another very important thing. Think about it, we've opened such a large market, if we eat it all by ourselves, wouldn't other people be jealous? Vivian knit her brows. Then what do we do? Vice City Lord Meng Qingwu is prepared to find a regional agent. This will solve this problem. Dolores paused before saying, the small towns have their own agents, the cities have their own agents, and the countries have their own agents. We'll cooperate with the strongest power in the area and let the locals manage the shopping center. Miracle City will provide technical support and management and will split the profits. This way, it will make it easier for the local areas to manage and it will make everyone rich together. The young miss really has a way. If we find an agent like this, it will make it easier for the local areas to manage and it will speed up our development. On the surface it looks like we're giving up some benefits, but it will create a more stable win-win situation. Chu Tian nodded. Since it's like this, then we'll do it. Do you think I don't want to? Dolores rolled her eyes. City Lord Meng Qingwu's plan is meticulous, but there are still some mistakes and miscalculations. The large tribes and races in the Forest of Chaos are much poorer than she imagined. Although there are many people who are interested, they don't have enough money to participate. No money. What are you talking about if you don't have money? Chu Tian had a look of bad luck. Could it be that Miracle Commerce has to build everything for them? That's why I came back. Dolores smiled strangely. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Chu Tian and Vivian were both stunned. Dolores was not a stupid person. She should know how big the investment was. She hadn't even seen the benefits yet. Was she going to give away all the money first? As Miracle City's chief financial officer, she should know that Miracle City's financial situation was not optimistic. I have an idea. We can use this chance to create another platform. If this platform is successful, in the Forest of Chaos and even on the continent, it won't be any worse than the Miracle Shopping Center. Dolores paused for a bit. I've even thought of a name for the platform. It'll be called Miracle Bank. Bank? This was Vivian's first time hearing this term. What is a bank? We can invest a large amount of money to build a bank and the bank will lend them money through mortgages, letting them complete the initial construction. Dolores added after saying this, of course, the bank won't lend money for free. We can set a high interest rate and use this method to earn money. Vivian quickly thought of the key point. What if they don't return the money they borrow? The forest races are actually not truly poor. Their tribes have accumulated treasures from generation to generation. They only lack primordial stones and certain resources that they need. Our loans have mortgages, so if the tribes want to borrow money from us, they have to put up a mortgage. Dolores added after saying this. In the future, when Miracle City has enough reputation, we can expand our business even further. The forest races have money and it's not safe to keep large amounts of money in their tribes, so they can store it in the bank. Not only will we not charge them a storage fee, we will even give them a certain amount of interest. We will use the bank's money to pay a mortgage, using money to make money, creating an endless cycle. Good. Chu Tian was very excited. Very good. Dolores did not disappoint Chu Tian, actually thinking of this method. This fellow was destined to be recorded in history. She would become the founder of the continent's financial world. This is a detailed plan. Dolores gave a scroll to Chu Tian. I hope that the bank can open as soon as possible, giving Miracle City and Miracle Commerce a stronger motivation. Chapter 904. The Super Source Energy Matrix and the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body. The two were completely different things. According to normal history, the two would appear around 400–500 years apart. First, there was the Source Energy Matrix and then the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body. Therefore, the Source Energy Matrix in the history books was originally controlled by humans and could only be used for normal calculations and statistics. After all, a living person could not merge with the matrix and the matrix itself did not have any intelligence. When the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body appeared, the situation was different. Gu Qianxiu said with a sigh. This thing will be recorded in history, chairman should give it a new name. Chu Tian also felt that computer didn't sound good, so he said to the people beside him, I'm not good at naming things, you guys should do it. I have one. Meng Yingying scratched her head and blurted out, how smart is its brain? We'll just call it Smart Brain, what do you guys think? Meng Qingwu nodded in satisfaction, I think it's very good. Chu Tian didn't think too much before deciding, alright, then we'll call it Smart Brain. Smart Brain, this was a super intelligent computer with strong learning and calculating abilities. It could be used in all aspects of life in the future. This was another milestone in the continent's development and a leap in Miracle Commerce's development. Meng Qingwu was already a bit impatient. Immediately send this Smart Brain to Miracle City to use first. I want to figure out how many functions smart brains have. Chu Tian waved his hand at her. What is the young miss in a rush for? Smart Brain won't fly away if we leave it here. Now that Miracle City and Central State have a transport network, we can teleport between the two places at any time. It's already very convenient to go back and forth, so there's no need to be in a rush. This was also true. Having a transport tower was truly convenient. Speaking of the Miracle Transport Tower, we consume quite a bit of energy each time we use it, so there should be a limit to the number of people we can teleport each day. Moreover, while the transport tower brings convenience, it also brings danger and instability. For example, people with bad intentions from the outside world can use the transport tower to come to Miracle City. Meng Qingwu asked, is there a way to prevent this from happening? The Miracle Transport Towers were built all over the world. It was impossible for Miracle Commerce to protect every transport tower, so there was always the possibility of an accident occurring. This would undoubtedly bring danger. When the Miracle Transport Tower is connected to Smart Brain in the future, we will be able to control everything, so we don't need to worry about this. Chu Tian said this before pausing. As for now, we can only raise the threshold to prevent the transport tower from being abused. Meng Qingwu nodded. The two of them drafted Miracle Commerce's Transport Tower Usage Regulations and Guidelines. This set of guidelines clearly stated, before using the Miracle Transport Tower, one had to first apply for a Transport Tower Use Permit from Miracle Commerce and also a Transport Pass Permit to the destination. The former was the right to use the local transport tower and the latter was the right to reach the destination. Unless it was a high-level member of Miracle Commerce with special permission, they had to apply to the relevant Miracle Commerce department a day in advance. They had to report the time and destination of the transport and pay 20 source stones to complete the transport service. After going around and around, in the end, they still had to spend 20 low-grade source stones. 20 low-grade source stones were converted to Southern Summer gold coins. That was 20 million gold coins. This kind of cost was hard for normal people to imagine, but with this kind of restriction, the transport tower would not be overloaded and it would be able to prevent any danger from occurring. Meng Qingwu nodded in satisfaction. This was much safer. Not only was the transport tower safer, it was also a foundation for commercialization. That night, the high-level members of Miracle Commerce gathered in the Southern Summer Royal Palace. The Southern Summer King held a large-scale banquet, not only to celebrate Miracle Commerce's glory, but also to thank Miracle Commerce for supporting the Southern Summer country. Actually, Miracle Commerce's early development was inseparable from the care of the Divine Wind Marquis, Yun Tianhe, and the Southern Summer King Dongfang Gan. The reason the Southern Summer country was able to smoothly pass through several crises was also because of Chu Tian and Miracle Commerce's help. Especially after the Southern Summer country's imperial region was destroyed, the Southern Summer country had to move their capital to Central State. Chu Tian brought his team to leave Central State, but he kept sending resources back and selling weapons and troops to the Southern Summer country. This allowed the half-dead Southern Summer country to quickly recover. The entire Southern Summer country was filled with gratitude towards Chu Tian. Although Miracle Commerce would slowly move out of the country, Miracle Commerce's traces would never disappear. Miracle Commerce would still leave behind large amounts of factories and laboratories in the Southern Summer country, which would continue to operate. Not only would it provide large amounts of jobs for the Southern Summer country, it would also bring the country to prosperity. Meng Yingying, Nangong Yun, and Vivian were very happy. The three girls repeatedly clinked their cups and drank until their faces turned red. Let's drink another cup. Let's go to the theater after we finish eating. Alright, I heard that he has a new work coming out recently. Nangong Yun and Yingying were very attached to Central State. After all, they had grown up here and had over 10 years of memories. Meng Yingying's face turned red. It wasn't easy to come back and we thought we wouldn't have another chance in this lifetime. Who would have thought that the transport towers would be built and we could come back to play at any time? This is truly great. That's right. Nangong Yun began to laugh. Our boss really is skilled. Vivian also chattered on. In the future, distance will not be a problem. When we're in the mood, we can come back to eat or go to the theater. This kind of life is very beautiful just thinking about it. Big brother Chu Tian is too great. Dolores had just been called back from Miracle City and it was her first time coming to a human place. At this moment, everything was filled with novelty. This is where the Vice City Lord lived? It seems like the Vice City Lord's status in this country wasn't low. Meng Qingwu nodded with a faint smile. She didn't like to drink and would only take a sip every time. In order to keep a clear head, she bitterly smiled and shook her head. What status? If it was a year and a half ago, I would just be a small merchant in a small city a few hundred miles away from here. Every day I would be careful as if I was walking on thin ice, living a life of constant fear. How is this possible? Dolores cried out in shock. Your company is so big and you're a marquis. Moreover, you're so smart and capable. How could you be a small merchant? I don't believe it. Human society is more complicated than the forest. At that time, there was no strength, no background, and no technology. How could you have any achievements? When Meng Qingwu said this, her eyes became a bit hazy. In this 1 year, everything has changed. Miracle commerce has gone from nothing to something, from small to big. It really is shocking. 1 year? Miracle commerce only used 1 year? Dolores couldn't even close her mouth. This was clearly not the work of Meng Qingwu. It was all the work of the mysterious Miracle City Lord. He really was a miraculous person. This king will take this chance to announce a few things. The Southern Summer King gently raised his hand and several royal proclamations were presented. Miracle commerce has given the Southern Summer Country a new lease of life. The Cloud Dream Marquis is now titled the Cloud Dream Ruler, Nangong Yun is titled the Phoenix Marquis, and Meng Yingying is titled the Marquis Ying. The Southern Summer Country is small and has no land to grant. Although it is an empty title, it represents the Southern Summer Country's friendship. Whether it was Nangong Yun or Yingying, they did not care about the Marquis title. They had the resources in their hands. How could a title compare to them, not to mention an empty title? But to be granted a Marquis title in their country, this was a matter worth celebrating. While everyone was celebrating, suddenly, one of the Southern Summer King's communication devices rang. Portable communication devices were very common in Central State and most people with a bit of status had one. How could the Southern Summer King not have one as the king? The Southern Summer King did not say much before his brows knit together. There is a situation in the Northern Defense Line. This king cannot accompany everyone. I've been rude. What did you say? Could it be the Northern Spirit Beasts are attacking again? Nangong Yun almost flipped the table. How preposterous. Are you done? It's not an all-out attack. The Southern Summer King shook his head and said, it's just harassment. Everyone doesn't know. Yun Tian has said from the side, when you left the Southern Summer Country, the Warhound's kingdom had already harassed the Southern Summer Country 5-6 times. Although they returned without any success, they still brought quite a bit of trouble. Although the Southern Summer Country can block the Warhound's kingdom's attacks, they do not have enough military strength to counterattack. Right now the North and South are in a state of separation. Chu Tian knit his brows. What is the Warhound's battle strength like? After the Battle of the Four States Lake, the Fong King and his army were completely annihilated. The Warhounds have gathered another 300,000 elites on the Warhounds Plains and the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom has added another 300,000. Now there are 600,000 troops stationed in the fortress. Although there are more and more troops stationed here, they have only been harassing us, which means that they are still accumulating strength. As long as their army reaches a certain level, they will launch another large battle against the southern summer country. It's too troublesome to have a ticking time bomb by our side. Chu Tian looked at the young miss beside him. How about we take advantage of this time to get rid of them in one go? Get rid of them in one go? The Southern Summer King and the others all opened their eyes wide. Chu Tian said this in a very relaxed tone. How was it like he was destroying a large kingdom? It was as simple as drinking a cup of water in front of him. Who would have thought that Meng Qingwu would not be surprised by Chu Tian's suggestion? After thinking about it for a minute, she nodded and said, "This is also good. Miracle Commerce's business in Central State is not small, and if it is exposed to the enemy's army, it will be like a fishbone stuck in our throat. It is better to get rid of it as soon as possible. This can be considered taking revenge for the Southern Summer Country's old Marshal Dongfang Zhan and the other heroes who died." Chapter 905. Miracle Banking's future was limitless. Not only would it increase Miracle City's influence in the future, it would also allow Miracle City to control the economy of the entire forest, finally becoming the commercial and financial center of the continent. Going from the future to the modern world allowed Chu Tian to have incomparably advanced knowledge. Therefore, he could clearly understand that miracle banking had great potential. If this idea came from Chu Tian's head, it wouldn't be strange at all. Dolores was a native that grew up in the forest, and for her to think of this, it was a very incredible matter. Chu Tian asked, "How much money do you think is appropriate to take from the company's treasury?" Dolores decisively replied, "All of it." "All of it?" "That's right." Dolores said in a very confident voice, "The Miracle Shopping Center has just started. It's just 20 small towns and a few large tribes, but I think the amount of loans won't be small. But after these powers borrow source stones, they have to buy equipment, materials, technology, and agent fees from the company. They have to meet the maintenance and hiring of technicians, so most of the source stones will flow back to Miracle City. Miracle Banking source stones will circulate once and then flow back into Miracle City's pockets." Vivian was a bit confused. "We've opened our business, sold our products, increased our influence, and developed the Miracle Shopping Center and the bank, but in the end we've obtained a large amount of collateral and debts. Changing from left to right, we've eaten all the benefits. How could there be this kind of good thing in this world?" Dolores blinked. "This is just this kind of good thing." This was truly a profiteer. The slyness of the Fox clan was vividly displayed. With this Fox clan merchant team in Miracle City, how could they worry about not being able to make a lot of money in the future? After a few days, the young Miss, Yingying, and Nangong had all successfully broken through. Their Starlight Immortal body had reached the large success realm, and they had all broken through to the true spirit realm. Meng Qingwu had just come out when she learned that Dolores was planning to build miracle banking. This surprised Meng Qingwu, but with her outstanding mind and intelligence, she instantly understood the benefits. Not simple. Truly not simple. This Fox clan woman was indeed a talent that could take care of things alone. On the other hand, Miracle City's conscription was coming to an end. Chu Tian was the city lord and the one who started the conscription, so of course he had to personally take a look. The main people in charge of the conscription were Dongfang Haoren and Qin Bingyu. These two had low-key personalities, so they weren't very active in Miracle Commerce's high level, but they were very direct and efficient. The conscription was completed without any problems. Of course, their contributions could not go unnoticed. The 30,000 forest locals that had been filtered through layers of people were standing in an orderly fashion in the open space. They were arranged according to their size and race. Although they were wearing different clothes and had different weapons, it already looked like an army. There weren't just Miracle City's new recruits here. The various tribes were all gathered around to join in the fun. This kind of scene was rarely seen in the forest. This was the first regular army in the Forest of Chaos and the first professional soldiers. Big Sister Bing Haoren, it's been hard on you. Before Chu Tian went on stage to speak, he first shook hands with the two of them. Chen Bingyu's style did not change at all. always wearing a black mask and keeping a low profile. Dongfang Haoren was different. Dongfang Haoren's tall and strong body was covered in armor, looking like a veteran general on the battlefield. This made Chu Tian feel very satisfied. Dongfang Haoren had grown very quickly in this period of time, so Chu Tian wanted to train him into a general of Miracle City's army. I believe that the soldiers participating in Miracle City's recruitment are the strongest and most elite warriors of the forest. Chu Tian took a loudspeaker and went on stage. You are all elites picked out of 10, you are all warriors among warriors. Miracle City needs people, so we welcome you to become Miracle City's glorious regular soldiers. The 30,000 new recruits all revealed looks of pride. The soldiers here had all fought their way through countless battles in the virtual arena and had passed a series of tests before finally becoming Miracle City's soldiers. For them to be able to stand here, it was the pride of a soldier. Not to mention that becoming a Miracle City soldier not only meant finding a good job for themselves, it also meant gaining quite a bit of glory and benefits for their tribe. I can clearly tell everyone that from the moment you choose Miracle City, you will welcome a different life. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Everyone's starting point is fair. Wealth, power, and glory, it is inexhaustible. Chu Tian passionately shouted, from today onwards, you will carry the glory of Miracle City and fight for Miracle City. Let us create Miracle City's glory together. The new recruits all roared out. The tribes in the forest had simple minds, therefore it didn't take too much brain power to control this kind of army. As long as they were treated well, as long as they were respected, as long as they had a future they could look forward to, there would be many soldiers willing to work for Miracle City. Other than that, this city lord will use this chance to announce a large matter. Chu Tian loudly shouted, in order to provide better benefits to Miracle City's citizens, Miracle Commerce will establish Miracle Bank and open a savings account for the citizens. Every idle source stone in the hands of a Miracle City citizen can be used to open a savings account in Miracle City. You can deposit and withdraw as you wish without any restrictions. We will provide the safest financial protection for the citizens, and not only will we not charge any fees, we will also give interest to the citizens. We will give interest of 1% for a full month, 8% for half a year, and 20% for a full year. The Miracle City people were stunned. They all had strange expressions as they whispered in each other's ears. More and more source stones could be stored? This was just too incredible. A full year's interest was 20%. If 100 source stones were stored for a year, wouldn't it become 120 source stones? The gnomes had very long lifespans. If they stored source stones in Miracle Bank for 50 to 100 years, wouldn't it become a large amount of wealth? Chu Tian chose to announce Miracle Bank at the recruit ceremony to attract more people's attention. Miracle Bank's savings account was only open to the citizens. This was mainly because Chu Tian was clear that Miracle Commerce's influence wasn't enough. Why would the forest locals and outside powers believe him? Not to mention that the situation in the Forest of Chaos changed in an instant. If Miracle City was destroyed one day, where would these people's wealth go? So Miracle Bank's savings account was a kind of welfare, opening it to the citizens of Miracle City. When the time was right, they would expand their account. But it was clear that even in Miracle City, most people didn't believe it. How could there be such an incredible thing? Miracle Commerce would take care of the source stones, and the source stones would increase in interest, producing even more source stones? The results of Miracle Bank's opening were not good. Chu Tian used his status as the city lord to promote it and used Miracle Commerce's strength as a guarantee. He also showed the citizens how convenient it was to store the space warehouse, but the citizens maintained a wait-and-see attitude and had no interest at all. Chu Tian was very depressed. This was not a good sign. Although this business was slow and he had to take it slow and steady, if everyone didn't have confidence in Miracle City and Chu Tian, how would they develop in the future? Chu Tian discussed it with Meng Qinggu and Dolores. Who cares? They would start lending in the forest first. Dolores led the fox race merchants around to negotiate. Finally, several strong local powers decided to use treasures of enough value as collateral, taking out a large amount of source stones from Miracle Bank to start a big business. Miracle Bank was 100% a high-interest loan. The treasures the locals used as collateral were valued at the market price of the forest, which was around double the value of the loan. The annual interest on the loan was 100%. Even like this, when a few leaders appeared, the other tribes and large locals followed suit and were all willing to accept this kind of harsh loan. This was because they understood that if they didn't take the loan, someone else would. If they didn't grasp this kind of good opportunity and someone else took it first, it would be too late for regrets in the future. The worst result would be that they couldn't repay the loan and would have to pay the bank the treasures in the space warehouse. Miracle Bank's successful loans gradually increased and Meng Qingwu and Dolores began to have headaches. This was troublesome, they didn't have enough source stones. These people were more enthusiastic about taking loans than they imagined. The treasures of the tribes were like trash, they all rushed to use them as collateral. These things were valued high in the forest market, so if Miracle Commerce shipped them outside, wouldn't it be worth several times more? Therefore, no matter if the locals could repay the loan or not, Miracle Commerce would not lose 100% on this business. Moreover, giving these source stones to the locals would quickly improve Miracle City's business system, which would benefit Miracle City in the end. Of course, the company would spare no effort in lending. Meng Qingwu tightly knit her brows. How many source stones do we have left? There's only 10,000 left. Dolores's face was filled with worry. We've already stepped on the red line. If we keep taking loans, the city's operations will be in danger and the gnome's research base will be affected. But there are several important areas that haven't been repaid yet. The gnome's great elder Clark requests an audience. Clark? Invite him in. Clark brought several clansmen with him, carrying several boxes as he walked in. Meng Qingwu looked at the gnomes in a puzzled manner. Elder Clark, you are... The gnome great elder Clark waved his hand and the gnome priests immediately opened the boxes, revealing large amounts of source stones in front of them. These 50,000 source stones are the gnomes and used source stones. I'm prepared to deposit them in Miracle Bank for a year in the gnome's name. Meng Qingwu and Dolores were shocked before being filled with joy. This was truly an unexpected pleasant surprise. The gnomes would provide this large deposit, providing a large amount of support for Miracle Bank. Clark was not stupid. The gnomes would do this because the gnomes and Miracle City's benefits were linked. If Miracle City became prosperous, they would also benefit. The other reason was that the gnomes had seen Miracle Bank's stable profit model, so they had enough confidence in Miracle Bank. Miracle Bank's appearance would not only earn large amounts of money for Miracle City, it would also promote the development of the entire area. Finally, Meng Qingwu signed a special agreement with Clark. The monthly and half-year interest on these 50,000 source stones were eliminated. As long as they were saved for a year, they would provide 40% interest. To encourage and support the gnomes, they would double the interest. The gnomes were also very happy. A year wasn't considered much to the gnomes. 50,000 source stones in Miracle Bank would double in value in a year. This was something they didn't even dare think about in the past. The matter of the gnomes having a large deposit in Miracle Bank was immediately spread through Miracle Commerce's various channels in Miracle City. This caused a large stir and there were many powers and individuals that came to make deposits. This caused the stagnant deposit business to become more active. Miracle Bank obtained enough capital and continued to lend and invest in the forest, while Miracle Bank was becoming more prosperous. Chapter 906. The Warhound's kingdom was a large kingdom no matter what, and the Warhound's planes were all soldiers. How could they be destroyed so easily? Miracle Commerce had left the southern summer country for a long time. When did they become this arrogant? It was fine if Chu Tian was like this, but Meng Qingwu had also been assimilated by this fellow? The southern summer country's strength is slowly recovering, but its battle strength is still not enough. It can protect itself, but it can't counterattack. The southern summer king gave a sigh, not to mention that even if we can destroy the Warhound's kingdom's main force, there are still several tens of millions of fierce spirit beasts in the Warhound's plains. There is also the incomparably strong Eagle Burial warring kingdom behind the Warhound's plains. This was the truth. A warring kingdom was not a small matter. The Eagle Burial Kingdom's experts could not compare to the giants of the Forest of Chaos, but the Eagle Burial Kingdom was a large kingdom with over 1.5 billion people, and it was a spirit-beast kingdom. The difference between the spirit-beast and human kingdoms was very large. The human kingdoms were rich, prosperous, and civilized, while the spirit-beast kingdoms were loose, barbaric, and warlike. If a human kingdom and a spirit-beast kingdom fought on the same level, they would not be able to win. A warhound's plains with tens of millions of people could form a warhound's kingdom. A warhound's kingdom with tens of millions of people could form 1,000,000 soldiers, and a warhound's kingdom with tens of millions of people could beat the southern summer country with 200 million people half to death. This was a spirit-beast kingdom. A spirit-beast kingdom where every citizen was a soldier. The Eagle Burial Kingdom had a conservative estimate of 1.5 billion people. This was considered a large kingdom on the continent. Moreover, with the characteristics of a spirit-beast kingdom, the proportion of their army was very high, especially for a warring kingdom that fought all over the place. Therefore, the Eagle Burial Kingdom had tens of millions of soldiers, plundering all over the place and living by fighting. Wherever they went, they were shrewd, using the tributes from the subordinate kingdoms to feed their army. The Eagle Burial Kingdom had been fighting all over the place, increasing their army and territory. This was a kingdom that was constantly expanding, and the southern summer country was just one of the countries the Eagle Burial Kingdom conquered to the south. Their strength could not be underestimated. Even if the Eagle Burial Kingdom is strong, fighting on all sides at once, they can't gather their forces at all. It is impossible for them to send their army to the southern summer country. Meng Qingwu was not worried about the Eagle Burial Kingdom at all. If the Eagle Burial Kingdom had enough troops, what were they doing over half a year? After dilly-dallying for so long, they only sent 300,000 soldiers to the Warhound's kingdom. This meant that the Eagle Burial Kingdom could not send too many troops. Once the north is attacked, we will have a buffer zone, and Central State will not need to constantly face the Spirit Beast army. Chu Tian slapped the table. We'll just rule the Warhound's plains and create a northern militant kingdom. Everyone was speechless. This was becoming more and more ridiculous. Was the Warhound's kingdom a country that could be easily destroyed? Was the Warhound's plains that easy to rule? The several tens of thousands of spirit beasts were nomads. In the endless plains that stretched over 10,000 miles, they were elusive and hard to track, so how could they be easily found? Meng Qingwu did not say anything, but she began to make arrangements. The new generation of source energy weapons have been developed, so we'll use this chance to test its power. Have Dongfang Haoren bring Miracle Commerce's Southern State Reserve Berserker Army over. Gu Qianxiu quickly said, "Tu Chairman, you have to think this over. The Southern State Reserve Army is an army that Miracle Commerce trained for several months and spent over 1 billion gold coins to create. Once the war begins, the soldiers' pay, the merit rewards, and all sorts of other expenses will not be a joke." Yun Tianhe also said, "This kind of large-scale war will be a drag on Miracle Commerce's development. It's better to bide our time and wait for the kingdom to cooperate with the company. Our Miracle Commerce can't even afford this bit of money." Chu Tian had already made his decision. Central State City does not need to interfere. Miracle City's strength is enough. This war will end in less than half a month and will unify the Warhound's plains in 2 months. The Southern Summer King knit his brows. It was true that Chu Tian liked to speak arrogantly, but looking at the historical records, his arrogance was well-founded. As for Meng Qingwu, she was a cautious person who would never let go of an arrow. If the two of them were this confident, it meant that they might be able to solve this problem. Good. Since the two of you have already decided to fight, how can this king hide behind the scenes? The current Southern Summer King was a wise and decisive person. The Southern Summer country cannot rely on strong reinforcements, otherwise it will cause the country's morale to decline. This king has decided to gather 150,000 soldiers and follow you to the north. There was no need for Central State City to gather 150,000 soldiers. After staying in the Forest of Chaos for a long time, The southern summer country's army was weak in his eyes. They were no different from chickens and dogs. Southern State City was Miracle Commerce's camp, and there were close to 30,000 barbarian berserkers stationed there. The strength of these berserkers surpassed the 100,000 southern summer soldiers. Unless it was a trump card army like the Griffin Knights or the Earth Dragon Knights, it was impossible to fight against these berserkers. How hard was it to raise a trump card army? If the southern summer country had 20 to 30,000 Griffin Knights or Earth Dragon Knights, history would have already been rewritten. Miracle City's most terrifying thing was not their special army, but rather the terrifying equipment these terrifying troops had. The source energy weapons were enough to raise the army's strength by several levels, so they were not inferior to the elites of a warring kingdom. Miracle Commerce's main commander was Dongfang Haoran. This former Southern Summer King's prince was now the calm martial ruler of the Southern Summer country. He had made large progress in this half a year, but he had never commanded a large-scale battle before, so he could use this chance to sharpen himself. After a few hours, the Central State Transport Tower continued to shine. The Minotaur Chief Arnold, the Shaman Priest Luz, the Ogre Chief Nathaniel, the Tiger Chief Andre. There were several dozen people in the Forest of Chaos. The most powerful local warriors all gathered here. Whether it was the Southern Summer King, the Divine Wind Marquis, or the Golden Arrow Marquis, their faces all twitched. They had never seen so many different races and different foreign races. What shocked the Southern Summer King and the Divine Wind Marquis the most was that these people were all experts in the peak 3rd True Spirit layer, with the strongest people almost reaching the 4th True Spirit layer. This was several dozen True Spirit experts. This was a lineup the small Southern Summer country did not even dare think of. Any one of these people would be invincible in the south. The effect of these mere dozens of people on the battlefield was superior to that of an elite lion with more than 100,000 men. If these people caused trouble in Central State, the consequences would be unimaginable. There was no one in Central State City that could stop them. City Lord. Arnold's nostrils flared. How did we get sent here all of a sudden? Where is this? The others didn't react in shock. They were all looking around in shock. The huge ogre's gaze swept across the other humans. That ferocious glint in his eyes and his imposing aura made it hard for them to breathe. All of you listen well. Chu Tian walked in front of them with his hands behind his back. Although he was facing several dozen fierce forest locals, he was not intimidated by the other side's aura at all. Don't say that the city lord did not give you a chance. This is a country outside of the Forest of Chaos, and there is a very wide plain in the north that has large amounts of food and land to steal. I brought you here this time for no other reason than to steal territory and food. The eyes of these locals lit up. They actually came out of the Forest of Chaos to steal territory and food? This kind of thing was indeed very rare to them. The people there are pitifully weak. You have to properly grasp this chance. Yes, City Lord. Everyone rubbed their fists in excitement. Chu Tian waved his hand, indicating for everyone to be quiet. This is the Southern Summer King. The Southern Summer King slightly recovered and immediately had people prepare food. These brave warriors have come from afar, and the Southern Summer country has hastily prepared food, so I'm afraid we did not take good care of them. Someone, come and receive the warriors. These country bumpkins had never left the forest in their lives. This group of country bumpkins, when had they ever enjoyed the luxurious life of humans? The Southern Summer King and the high-level members of the Southern Summer country all attached great importance to this. They were lucky enough to visit the Southern Summer country. This was something they never dared think about in their entire lives. In the next 2 days, whether it was eating, drinking, or living, they all had people serving them. This was simply an unprecedented experience. When these several dozen people walked through the city, they immediately caused a stir in Central State, causing people to flee in panic. However, when the radio stations and the media announced their identities, everyone's attitudes changed. These grotesquely shaped fellows actually found reinforcements from the endless forests in the south. These were warriors that had defeated the war hounds for the Southern Summer country. Each one was a true expert. The southern summer citizens were no longer panicking and treated them like heroes. Arnold and the others had never received this kind of treatment before. These country bumpkins had lived here for a day or two and were praised to the heavens, greatly satisfying their vanity. At this time, a Heaven's Eye airship above the 4 states lake sent back a message and image. The enemy has been locked onto the northwest direction, mainly riding giant flying mounts. Although the image was not clear, it could be vaguely seen that the Eagle Burial Kingdom's ambush force was around 20,000 people. They had learned from their previous failure, and the warhounds would not fight with the southern summer country on the water. Rather, they used giant rocks to transport their army. Each giant rocks could transport 600-700 soldiers, and other than several dozen giant rocks, the rest were air cavalry. This kind of formation allowed the army to move freely. Their target was clearly the central state port or important areas like the factories. After causing trouble and damage to the southern summer country, they would immediately retreat, not wanting to fight. The giant transport beasts and air cavalry worked together. The southern summer country's air force was very weak, so this arrangement was to attack their weakness. Miracle Commerce relied on Oldman's small town to buy many flying demon beasts from the nearby tribes. Miracle City also trained and bought large amounts of flying demon beasts, but distant waters could not quench a nearby thirst. The transport tower's transport capacity was limited, so unless they created a space gate, it was impossible to transport the army. However, there was no need for that. The power they had now was more than enough. Chapter 907. The Southern Summer Central State Laboratory sent a piece of exciting and good news. The Source Energy Computer had made a breakthrough. This was something Chu Tianwei was most excited about recently. Miracle Commerce had exploded several times in the past year, creating the source energy weapons, the space warehouse, and the spiritual world. Now, whether it was technology or production, they were all facing a bottleneck. With Chu Tianwei's knowledge in this era, he could only use the crudest method to realize a part of it before he fell into a stagnant state. Now that the source energy computer had been successfully developed, it would instantly break the current ceiling and increase Miracle Commerce's potential by a large amount, so it could be said that this was a very important matter. The source energy matrix is not stable and we can't move it for now. What do you plan to do? Meng Qingwu had participated in the source energy computer research before. Although she didn't know what use the source energy computer had, the source energy computer could be said to be the project Miracle Commerce had spent the most time on, so it was one of the earliest projects Chu Tian had prepared. This complicated, troublesome, and strenuous project, if it wasn't worth it, Chu Tian would never do it. Young miss, go to the gnome's laboratory. I want to borrow their remaining spatial crystals. Chu Tian made his decision. Nangong will contact Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianxiu. I will send the blueprints and materials for the transport tower to the warehouse and have them prepare it in Central State City. Vivian will personally make a trip to Central State as soon as possible and build the transport tower for the southern summer country, making it easier for me to go over. Alright. The transport tower was very convenient. Once there was a transport tower, the two places would be very close and they could teleport at any time. But the transport tower not only needed the incomparably precious eyes of the star, it also needed large amounts of spatial materials. Miracle Commerce did not have many of these rare materials, and even the gnomes didn't have many in their several hundred years of storage. When Miracle City's transport tower was built, Chu Tian had already used most of the gnome's spatial attributed materials. Now that he was in a rush to build the second transport tower, Chu Tian had no choice but to borrow the rest of the gnome's spatial crystals. If these things were left in the gnome's hands, they would at most be used to make some storage equipment, so it was better to lend them all to Chu Tian. At worst, Chu Tian would just give them a space warehouse in the future. Everyone immediately began to follow his orders. This is bad. Meng Yingying quickly ran in. The forest tribes are causing trouble in the city and their leader is Arnold. We don't know how to deal with them. Quickly go and take a look. What? What were these fellows doing? Under Miracle City, several chiefs were leading a large group of people to protest. The newly recruited guards of the city lord's castle were in a dilemma. On one hand, many of these people were their tribe members, so it wasn't good to turn hostile like this. Arnold, you fucking dare to rebel? Arnold saw the angry Chu Tian and immediately shrank his neck. He never thought that he would draw Chu Tian out. After hesitating for a few seconds, he loudly said, "We are not rebelling, we are only fighting for our legal rights. We want to see Miracle Bank's chairman." When Miracle Bank was established, Meng Qinggu was the chairman and Dolores was the vice chairman. Arnold and the others did not want to see Meng Qinggu, rather they wanted to see Dolores for an explanation. Why do you want to see her? Because that vixen Dolores is being unfair. Arnold's large nostrils released steam and he looked very angry. Recently she has been giving large amounts of source stones to people on the outside, but she doesn't even lend us a single source stone. It's just because of the grudges between the tribes. This is clearly using her position to take revenge. We don't accept this. That's right. Outsiders can borrow money from the bank, but we can't. Our tribe will send out 500 elites to become Miracle City's regular soldiers. The chiefs were all excited, as if they had suffered a great loss, giving Chu Tian a big headache. The so-called not worrying about scarcity, but worrying about inequality. Before miracle banking was established, everyone didn't think much of it. Now that miracle banking was established, several tens of thousands of source stones were used to lend money, but they were all sent to distant tribes and small towns. These locals tried to apply, but they were all rejected. The forest locals did not have good brains, so Dolores's attitude was immediately suspected of having ulterior motives. They thought about how the Fox clan often had conflicts with the nearby Minotaurs and Tiger people, so they naturally thought that Dolores was using her position to take revenge. They didn't know the troubles of the city lord. Actually, it wasn't just the locals that were complaining, even the citizens were feeling dissatisfied. For example, Chu Tian recruited large amounts of elites from the forest to form an army, giving them special treatment and giving them stable jobs. Instead, the citizens didn't receive the same treatment as the conscription, so many gnomes were feeling dissatisfied with the city lord. Could this be blamed on Dolores and Chu Tian? The surrounding tribes were born around Miracle City, so they were all in the same sphere of influence. Dolores' large amounts of loans was not just for the development of the bank, but also to create a larger commercial area, allowing the Miracle Shopping Center to cover a part of the area. Chu Tian's conscription was to stabilize the surrounding tribes and locals, letting everyone have a stable life. He also gave the locals large amounts of jobs to stabilize their lives, which was beneficial to the development of the area. But facing the dissatisfaction of the citizens, Chu Tian could only announce a large conscription. The citizens had to be a certain proportion of the conscription. Chu Tian asked, "Why are you taking loans? What else can we do?" Arnold confidently said, "The new area is about to open. We need to save money to fight the evil dragon. There have been more and more advertisements recently and we've seen the evil dragon's abilities. It doesn't seem like a fellow that's easy to deal with, so is it wrong for us to prepare a bit more source stones?" Did the locals only care about this? Chu Tian almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He thought they needed source stones for something. Chu Tian asked, "Don't you know that loans need to be mortgaged? Miracle Bank gives out source stones with interest, and if you can't pay it back, the mortgaged item will be confiscated." "Isn't it just mortgaged? We can take it out," several rich tribes said without any hesitation. "We're not afraid, we just want source stones." These locals really wanted loans. "Everyone, please listen to me." Chu Tian knit his brows and thought about it. Then he suddenly said, "Miracle Bank wasn't created to earn a lot of money, but rather to promote the development of the forest. The source stones we give out are not just to earn interest, but also to increase the value of the source stones in the forest, creating a win-win situation for the entire forest. Not only do we lend out source stones, we also need to make sure the lender gets more benefits. Otherwise, wouldn't this kind of loan be a blood-sucking action?" The locals were confused. "What do you mean?" "My meaning is that if you want to apply for a loan from Miracle Bank, then you have to take action. We only encourage business loans at this stage. We don't support personal loans or tribe loans for pleasure." Arnold had an unhappy expression. The Minotaurs don't know how to do business. Who says you need to do business to start a business? Chu Tian clapped his hands. Ying map. Meng Ying quickly opened a large map of the forest. Chu Tian stood in front of the large map and pointed at the Minotaur Valley as he said, "The Minotaur Valley is rich in ore deposits and the Minotaurs have a body full of strength, so why don't they make a mine? Miracle City will welcome a period of rapid development. In the future, not only will the ore sell well, the price will also increase. Isn't this a business opportunity? The Minotaurs can use the ore as a reason to attract Miracle Commerce's investment. We can make a Minotaur mine together. Wouldn't the Minotaurs have an endless source of income?" Arnold felt this was reasonable. Borrowing money was not a long-term plan. The Minotaurs were already so poor that they only had their underwear left, so the more they borrowed, the poorer they would become. It was better to teach them to fish than to give them a fish. Miracle Commerce could work with the Minotaurs to make a mine. Miracle Commerce would provide transportation, mining tools, various technologies, sales channels, and etc. The Minotaurs would be responsible for mining and refining the ore. In the future, they would have a large income. Chu Tian pointed at another area and said, "There is a very rare wood near the ogre tribe. This wood itself is a level 3 material and the entire forest is filled with it. You really don't know the treasure you're guarding. We can also work with the ogres to make a lumberyard. This place is suitable for growing. The center of the Forest of Chaos was rich in resources. Even if Chu Tian casually dug a hole, he could find a crystal mine that could be mined for 50 years. The rich natural resources were enough to make the entire forest rich. Look, this forest is rich in resources and there are treasures everywhere. Why do you need to worry about a few source stones in the bank?" Chu Tian circled a large area on the map. "I plan to open a forest industrial park here. The various tribes can invest with Miracle Commerce. Those with money will contribute money, those with power will contribute labor, those with technology will contribute technology, those with resources will contribute resources, and those with channels will contribute channels. We will split the profits together and everyone will become rich together, so why do we need to hurt each other over a small matter?" Right. The locals were filled with excitement. Miracle Commerce's space warehouse was no longer a secret. With the rich local resources and Miracle Commerce's channels, it was enough for everyone to become rich. They wouldn't need to worry about things like famine. Chu Tian spoke for a long time until his saliva was dry and he finally convinced the locals to leave. He had only provided a preliminary idea. As for the specific plan, it was the young Miss business, so Chu Tian would not worry about it at all. The forest was still very chaotic. The citizens, locals, and various powers were all mixed together. Only a patient and wise manager like the young Miss would be able to organize everything. Chu Tian was afraid anyway. "Chu Tian, you're really amazing. You actually managed to trick these barbaric and unreasonable fellows." "Tricking? This is called tricking." Chu Tian rolled his eyes. "If we want the area to be stable, we can only make everyone rich. This is something we have to do sooner or later, it's not just talk. I really don't know what Miracle City will become in the future." Meng Ying looked at the silent and empty area with an emotional sigh. "Vivian will need a few days to build the transport tower in the southern summer country. Do you have any other plans?" Chapter 908. The Oldman small town's oil mine had already been mined, and with the silver oil as the foundation, Miracle Commerce had already developed a new generation of energy. With this as the foundation, naturally they could create a new generation of weapons. Miracle Commerce had established a large market in the Oldman small town, continuously sending materials to the southern summer country's secret weapon factory. Now there was already a batch of weapons being made. Meng Qingwu contacted the factory and a new batch of weapons was immediately sent over. It looked like a source energy cannon, but it wasn't the same. The source energy cannon fired a wave of energy at the target, creating a strong killing effect. But the source energy cannon was very strong, but it had a very hard-to-ignore flaw. The energy wave it fired was condensed from energy, so it would constantly weaken and dissipate. The further it was fired, the weaker it would be. Once it passed a certain distance, it would completely dissipate and its effective range and killing radius would be limited. The weapon sent over now was a weapon that could fire live ammunition, a large-scale rocket launcher. Miracle Commerce's employees brought out 3-meter-long rockets. The rocket launcher was incomparably large, with each one as thick as a person's thigh. It was covered in blue crystals and was reinforced with large amounts of runes, releasing waves of energy from the inside. The bottom of the rocket launcher and the rocket launcher have a compatible source energy array. Once the rocket launcher is fired, a large amount of energy will be sent out. It can reach a distance of 100 miles and its average speed is 7 miles per second. If it encounters a large amount of resistance, it will explode. This is a pretty good long-range weapon. The rocket launcher's head is made of second-generation energy and its destructive might is very strong. Even a mid or late true spirit realm expert would find it hard to take it head-on. Meng Qingwu continued to explain, this weapon was invented to attack fortifications and large targets that wouldn't move. Now with Smart Brain, perhaps we can try to directly attack the enemy's moving troops. Chu Tian said, instead of saying this much, it's better to give it a try. Zero, are you prepared? We're already prepared. Good, let's go. Several new models of battleships were docked in the central state port. These were the new generation of battleships jointly developed by the Southern Summer Royal Family and Miracle Commerce. Not only did they use high-level source energy, they were also equipped with the first-generation source energy cannons. Whether it was speed or battle strength, they were all impeccable. 5 rocket launchers were sent to the deck of a large battleship. This time the rocket launchers were not manually operated, rather Zero was placed here to form a temporary control panel. This control panel was not only connected to the rocket launchers, it was also connected to the information sent back by the Heaven's Eye airship. The enemy's position, speed, and direction were all quickly sent into the source energy matrix. With 10 energy columns working at the same time, the entire system quickly worked. The first-generation Smart Brain was large and cumbersome, but it could calculate 500 million times per second. It was enough to process a large amount of data. The enemy's position, trajectory, and flying speed, as well as the weapon's data, could be calculated accurately. The Southern Summer Army had already gathered. 150,000 Central State City elites had boarded the battleships and the 30,000 Southern State Berserkers were on the way. It could be said that the war hounds were under the Southern Summer Country's surveillance, so it was impossible for them to sneak attack them. Only the two sides were so far away that they couldn't even see it with binoculars. Could the rocket hit the target in the air? This was not like bombing a city. The target was far away, small, and still active. This was definitely not an easy task. The Southern Summer King's group, Arnold, Druz, and the others were all standing on the deck, waiting for this moment to happen. The target is in range and has been locked on. It can be fired with an estimated hit rate of 87%. Zero's emotionless mechanical voice came, "Do you want to fire?" Chu Tian looked at the empty sky and nodded, "Fire." Zero coldly said, "Begin firing." The rocket launcher was slightly adjusted, and with a few continuous rumbles, 5 pointed and long spear-shaped rockets were launched into the sky. The tail flames were neither gorgeous nor long, and only a light blue and white energy flow was released. However, the speed was raised to the extreme in an extremely short period of time, as if it was going to pierce through space. When the air was violently rubbing against each other, it actually ignited into raging flames, immediately wrapping around the entire rocket. Too fast. The rocket instantly broke through the sound barrier and then wildly accelerated, reaching its fastest speed in just a few seconds. It was around 6-7 miles per second, which was around 10 times the speed of sound. How shocking was 10 times the speed of sound? Even a true spirit realm expert would find it hard to reach 10 times the speed of sound. The Warhound's army was around 1,000 meters in the air, not knowing that danger was quickly approaching. When they vaguely discovered that there were several streaks of light in the sky, it was already too late. The rocket was much faster than the speed of sound. Therefore, it was already too late when they discovered the sound of air breaking. The 5 rockets burned from the friction of the air, turning into 5 meteors falling from the sky. They flew across tens of thousands of miles, breaking through everything as they flew forward. The Warhound's commander did not even have time to shout before the 5 missiles hit the giant rock. There was no explosion. It was a storm. Shockingly, it was an energy storm that was expanding. The giant rock was instantly swallowed by the energy storm and its entire body was turned into minced meat. Several hundred Warhound's elites were instantly torn apart by the energy, not even leaving a corpse behind. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Everyone could see the energy storm in the sky from afar. Even if they weren't killed by the explosion, with such a terrifying energy storm, it would be hard for them to escape unscathed. It can't be. Nangong Yun's eyes popped out. How could this power be this strong? Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. This weapon isn't bad, we need to mass produce it in the future. This kind of missile weapon and pure energy weapon had their own style. The source energy cannon had a short range, but it was very strong in its effective killing radius and it was almost impossible to intercept. After all, it was just a wave of energy and its weakness was that it had a high requirement on the barrel. This kind of dense energy was condensed. How could normal materials withstand it? Therefore, strong materials were the prerequisites for high-level source energy cannons. The rockets and missiles had a long range. In the future, when miracle commerce entered the information age and automated smart brain era, it would have a terrifying killing range and deterrence. Because it was a real thing that was fired, the missiles would not be consumed before they exploded. Of course, the weakness was that it was easy to intercept and its destructive power was weaker than the source energy cannons. Chu Tian said, "How many more of these rockets do we have?" Meng Qingwu shook her head and said, "This is the newest weapon and this is the first time we're using it, so we don't have much in stock. This is just a test." "What? Truly disappointing," Chu Tian said with a sigh. "The company's production is too weak, we need to strengthen it and strengthen it. All right, listen to my orders, we'll immediately move forward and take care of the fish that escaped the net." Although they didn't have any more rockets, their goal had been achieved. Several giant rocks were directly killed and the Warhound soldiers suffered heavy casualties. They had suffered such a heavy defeat before even reaching Central State, it could be imagined how much of a blow this was to the Warhounds. Even if the remaining survivors still had battle strength, they would not have any fighting spirit left. The 150,000 Southern Summer soldiers started their warships and several hundred warships moved across the lake, creating a spectacular scene. Everyone only had one goal, which was to head to the Tsang State port on the northern shore of the Four States Lake and directly attack the Warhounds' fortress. The defeated Warhounds did not need the Southern Summer country to chase them at all. The giant shark gang intercepted them while they were retreating, catching all the survivors of the Warhounds' ambush in one fell swoop. After Chu Tian left, the giant shark gang underwent an earth-shattering change. Boss Yu had already become a true spirit cultivator and the giant shark gang's members had doubled in half a year, becoming the #1 gang in the Southern Summer country. This was a power that no one dared ignore, especially in the Four States Lake. At this time, a fleet filled with berserkers from Southern State arrived. After the Southern Summer country's army gathered, they majestically headed to the northern shore's Tsang State port. The Southern Summer soldiers had been waiting for this counterattack for too long. The Southern Summer country and the Warhounds had a deep grudge, especially after Imperial City had been taken and the northern states had fallen. Countless Southern Summer citizens had been slaughtered and plundered, causing the Southern citizens to be filled with rage. Only facing the Warhounds' aggressive stance, the Southern Summer country had no way of turning the situation around. Chu Tian once again raised the morale of the Southern Summer soldiers. Miracle Commerce was participating in this battle, so they would definitely succeed. Everyone's aura was like a rainbow, swallowing 10,000 miles like a tiger. They charged forward without stopping for a moment. The Warhounds never would have thought that the Southern Summer country would suddenly have a decisive battle. The Southern Summer country wanted to take advantage of the Warhounds' lack of reaction and destroy their foundation, taking back the Southern Summer country's lost land. Chu Tian said, "This kind of direct attack will cause too many casualties, so we'll go ahead and do something behind them." Alright. Vivian immediately brought Chu Tian with her as they moved through space. Vivian's innate spatial energy was not bad, being able to travel several hundred kilometers with each teleportation. Although Chu Tian also had innate spatial energy, he could only teleport short distances. "We're here." The two of them arrived at Tsang State a day earlier than the fleet. This was the junction between Tsang State and the Imperial region. There were several ports in Tsang State that were located here, and it was a very prosperous place in the southern summer country. Ever since it was occupied by the War Hound's spirit beasts, this place had undergone a large change. Chu Tian used Vivian's ability to sneak into the Tsang State fortress. The two of them quickly placed time bombs in every corner of the fortress. These time bombs were made from the second-generation energy technology, so they were naturally very strong. When everything was prepared, Chu Tian left the fortress without anyone noticing and was now waiting for a good show to begin. Chapter 909. The basin where they fought the Lich Dragon had already been sealed by the gnomes. Although the earth-shattering battle had passed for a while, the entire area was still covered in a thick death aura. Several dozen miles of vegetation had withered and there were still undead wandering around the area. Whether it was Miracle City or the locals of other places, they were not interested in this place at all. The gnome Great Elder Clark had led people in to dig, finally finding a space filled with powerful death energy under the basin. This should be an ancient death ruin. The Lich had built the altar and array on top of the ruins, absorbing the death energy that had been brewing for tens of thousands of years, finally condensing it into a terrifying power that could destroy the entire city. If Chu Tian hadn't stopped him in time, Miracle City would have already turned into a death zone. Chu Tian brought Ying, the little fox, the 18 divine servants, and the 10 Fox clan priests into the ruins. "Everyone be careful." Chu Tian turned around and made a gesture. He looked into the deep underground space and said, "This place is filled with all kinds of dangerous undead." The Fox clan priests were all confused. Why did Chu Tian come here for no reason? Moreover, he didn't lack experts by his side, so why did he choose the demonic god religion's priests? The demonic god religion's priests were not strong in battle, so the Fox clan's main value to Miracle City was beast taming and business. "Oh my god, why does this place look so gloomy?" Meng Ying followed Chu Tian into the underground world. She felt her body turn cold like there was ice water pouring into her pores. There are rotten bones all over the ground. It's just like a large tomb. "What did you come here for? Is there a hidden treasure here?" Chu Tian gave a laugh. "Take a guess." Meng Ying gave a snort. Clark had already brought people to explore the death ruins, but because it was very dangerous and the negative energy was too strong, the exploration team had to retreat after entering a bit, so they didn't have much information to gather. Chu Tian was walking in front with his sword drawn. The little fox was lying on his shoulder, taking in large mouthfuls of energy. It sucked away the strong death energy around them, relieving the pressure on them. The entire underground world was like a huge ancient tomb. The skeletons of the ancient creatures, under some kind of powerful force, actually formed spiraling bone pillars. It was these pillars that firmly supported the space. Chu Tian could feel a strong energy fluctuation. The entire ruin was not simply supported by a physical structure. It had formed some kind of profound and powerful energy field that enveloped the entire tomb. That was why it had not been damaged even after tens of millions of years. Even though the battle in the basin was extremely fierce, this place did not collapse in the slightest. "Hey, tell me when the time comes, what is in this broken place?" Meng Ying didn't even finish before her eyes suddenly popped out and her snow-white teeth chattered, "Ghost, ghost. So many ghosts are coming out." The several dozen people had just arrived at a relatively open and flat area. There were spiraling bone pillars all around them, just like naturally formed stalactites rising from the ground. Only these bone pillars had large amounts of terrifying skulls embedded in them. At this moment, The skulls released a smoke-like energy. This energy quickly gathered in the air and quickly formed a fierce-looking ghost source spirit. There were many of them, and in the blink of an eye, there were several hundred of them. The dozen people were completely surrounded. The various ancient being skeletons piled up all around them began to tremble. What? A bone arm reached out. Meng Yingying's slender leg was grabbed and she was already frightened, so she quickly kicked out with a scream. Meng Yingying's battle strength was not that high, but she was still a true spirit cultivator. True spirit cultivator's spirit energy erupted and the bones were instantly shattered. Meng Yingying was still in shock as she found that the place where the bones touched began to smoke. It was a good thing she had the starlight immortal body to protect her, otherwise with this kind of strong death energy entering her body, her leg would have been mostly crippled. The entire world was filled with the sea of bones. Countless strange-looking skeletons slowly crawled out. There were so many of them that it was hard to imagine. There were quite a few complete ancient beast skeletons and their bodies released an aura that was not inferior to a level 3 demon beast. Meng Yingying was scared silly. Run! Run your head. Chu Tian directly knocked her head. Truly useless. Don't tell others that you're with me in the future. Meng Yingying was not convinced. There were over 12,000 undead monsters awakened this time. These undead monsters had been sleeping in this large tomb for who knows how long, and now they were all very strong. There were even some that were not inferior to true spirit experts. Meng Yingying had been raised by Chu Tian and she had never participated in any battles before. Although her cultivation was high, she was actually very weak, so when had she ever seen this kind of scene? Chu Tian patted the little fox. Go! The little fox immediately made its move. Its figure flickered and in an instant, it passed by the strongest undead monsters. Although the little fox's body looked like a small speck in their eyes, it was like a bullet hitting its prey. These powerful undead monsters collapsed upon contact. They were monsters without intelligence in the end. The little fox could easily swallow their soul flames. Chu Tian waved his hand and the demonic god priests began to summon. Several dozen summoned beasts surrounded them and the divine servants formed a barrier to block the attacks of these undead. A skeletal bird quickly charged over. The divine servants shattered it with a single punch. Meng Yingying was stunned. When did these things become this strong? Nonsense, how could the puppets I refine be mediocre? Chu Tiankai issued an order to the Yao god priests. Do you see these dead souls? I need large amounts of these spiritual bodies. If you help me collect more, this city lord will greatly reward you. The Fox clan priests finally understood. It was no wonder Chu Tian would find the demonic god priests. Chu Tian's main goal in coming here was to collect undead with spiritual bodies. In the entire Miracle City, only the demonic god religion was proficient in preserving souls. This was the foundation of their summoning techniques. The little fox completely suppressed the strongest undead, the summoned beasts, Chu Tian, and Meng Yingying blocked the other undead, and the demonic god priests took out bottles filled with strange runes. They used some unknown demonic technique to suck in the spiritual bodies of the undead souls one by one. Meng Yingying wasn't afraid after getting used to it. Although there were countless undead monsters, they couldn't do anything to them right now. Not to mention that they had city return scrolls, so they didn't need to worry about their safety at all. She asked in a strange voice, "Why are you collecting so many spirits?" "Don't ask so much, just do your work." The undead monsters in this place seemed like they could never be killed. After fighting for an entire half an hour, not only did the undead around them not decrease, there were even more of them. "City Lord, the soul-sealing bottles are already full, we can't store any more." The bottles in the hands of the demonic god priests were filled with purple soul energy that kept hitting the walls of the bottles, as if they would shatter the bottles at any moment. "Enough, we're leaving." Chu Tian led everyone and began to retreat. However, before they left this strange tomb, he cast a glance into the distance. His gaze revealed a look of contemplation. This place was clearly not formed naturally. It was probably a place set up by an ancient powerhouse. So, what exactly was sealed here? It wasn't time yet. Now wasn't the time. Since the ruins weren't far from Miracle City, It wouldn't be too late to explore it later. When Chu Tian returned to the city, it was already dark. This trip's harvest wasn't bad. There were over 100 spirits sealed in the soul-sealing bottles that weren't weak. He directly brought these things to the laboratory. The gnomes were very surprised by Chu Tian's sudden rebellion. Clark asked in a curious voice, "City Lord, is this appropriate?" Chu Tian directly threw a blueprint to him. "Don't ask so much, go and prepare it." The gnomes didn't dare be careless and immediately went to work. Meng Yingying looked at Chu Tian. "What medicine are you selling?" "Ask less and look more. Why you talking so much?" "I'm talking too much, annoying you to death." "Take a hit." Meng Yingying's round but was slapped. Meng Yingying angrily chased after him, but she was taken down by the divine servants in just 2-3 moves. How could she fight Chu Tian? She could only angrily say something and call her good sisters Nangong Yun and Vivian over. The three of them would beat him together. He really was a fool. Nangong Yun and Vivian were good at fighting, but the two of them worshipped Chu Tian, treating him like a god. They didn't dare make a move against Chu Tian. While the two of them were bickering, the gnomes were already prepared. Clark stared at the source energy array on the ground. It was releasing a purple glow and was made up of several arrays. If his guess wasn't wrong, this was a soul-attributed array. Who had seen a soul-attributed array in this era before? The gnomes were all curious as they came over. A soul-sealing bottle was placed in the center of the array. With a pu sound, the bottle cap flew up. A dozen or so evil spirits rushed out, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Chu Tian calmly said, "Activate the array." The gnome priest quickly activated the array and the evil spirits were covered in light, immediately letting out sharp screams. These spirits were naturally formed vengeful spirits, so their resentment, hatred, and killing intent were too strong. Chu Tian's array could purify them one by one without killing them. Clark was very shocked. The source of the evil spirits' power was resentment and hatred, so they were good at spiritual attacks. If the negative energy was purified, in theory, it would be impossible for them to form a body. Chu Tian purified the evil spirits and kept them in their pure spiritual form. This was incredible. Of course, after being purified, they didn't have any energy left, leaving behind an empty spiritual body. These spirits are already in a stable state without any attacks because these spirits are made up of soul energy and spiritual energy. These two things are the foundation of thinking. Chu Tian said this while making a few wrinkles. Then as long as the spirits are modified, they can obtain simple thinking abilities. This is the simplest form of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.